Chapter 6:26. Wouldn't a divorce be a second marriage? Lualuali was a little confused. So you mean, that's it? Why couldn't she see what Luo Meiwan meant? Did he mean that he didn't approve of it just because he was angry? What is Gu Linshan thinking? Did he really marry you because he was forced to? Luo Meiwan asked. This was the crux of the problem. Anyway, she wasn't a daughter of the Gu family, and they weren't related by blood. If Gu Linshan really wanted to marry Lualuali, she wouldn't say anything. Her only worry now was that Lualuali would be at a disadvantage. What did an 18-year-old child know about men and marriage? Youngest uncle, Why are you still calling him youngest uncle? I'm used to it. Mother, have you already accepted my marriage to youngest uncle? Do you want me to ask you to get a divorce? Do you think it's nice to get a divorce? Getting married at 18 and getting divorced at 18. What do you want others to think? Lualuali wanted to say that she was too old-fashioned. But she didn't say anything in the end. She knew Luo Meijuan's character. Once she had made up her mind, she couldn't change it. Mother, don't tell me you're going to look for youngest uncle? Do you want me to pretend that I don't know? It's fine if you don't know any better, but does he not know any better? Mother, don't look for youngest uncle. Let me settle this matter myself. No, I'm going to look for him and ask him to marry you in a grand manner. That's not good, is it? Lualuali was shocked. Why not? It's not good for him to do that. You're in such a mess with the Gu family. Is it really okay for you to step in? Lualuali asked. Luo Meijuan's anger was immediately suppressed. She thought of something and asked, Does old Master Gu know? He knows. What did he say? Isn't he angry? How can he not be angry? He's just short of being angry. But Gu Linshan does things his way and no one can change his mind. So, if he doesn't want to do something, it's useless even if you talk to him. Lualuali knew Gu's methods. Of course, Luo Meiwan knew too. Otherwise, when Lualuali wanted to look for Gu Linshan, she had been the first to say that. But now she was hesitating. Was it really going to look for Luali's essest? Seeing this, Lualuali immediately said, Mom, don't worry. Leave this to me. I'll handle it. Why? She Lualuali didn't ask Gu Linshan to pick her up. After parting with Luo Meiwan, she didn't call Gu Linshan. She got into the car herself instead of going back to the mansion. She drove around aimlessly. The chauffeur asked her several times, but she told him to just drive. Her phone rang. Lualuali glanced at the caller ID. She was so angry that she turned it off. She wanted to divorce Gu Linshan, while Luo Meiwan didn't know what was going on. Luo Meiwan wouldn't agree even if she wanted a divorce now. It was all Gu Linshan's fault. If it weren't for him, why would there be so many annoying things? There was also that haunting Lin Xiangting. What did that have to do with her? Lin Xiangting was just venting her anger because she couldn't get Gu Linshan. What did she do wrong? Wasn't she innocent? In the dark bar, Lualuali was huddled in a corner, drinking from a bottle of wine. She looked at the woman dancing and singing on the stage. Her eyes were unfocused. Obviously, she had drunk too much. But she didn't think she had drunk too much. Because she still felt aggrieved. Gu Linshan, you bastard. It's all because of you that I'm in such a mess now. Bastard. Lualuali waved her hand in the air angrily. After shouting, she poured wine into the glass in front of her. Her hands were shaking. She poured half of the wine and the other half leaked out. At this moment, someone sat down in the seat opposite her. Lualuali didn't even raise her head. I'm sorry, this seat is already taken. I hope you can find another seat. After she finished speaking, the person opposite her didn't leave. Lualuali raised her head angrily. She really wasn't drunk. At least she knew who was sitting opposite her. You're really haunting me. Lualuali didn't have any hesitation in her mind and said bluntly. Lin Xiangting had a masked smile on her face. Me? I'm just here to check on you. If you're drunk and something happens here, it'll be terrible. What would happen to me? Lualuali frowned and asked drunkenly. For example, being raped or being gang raped. There are all kinds of people in the bar every day. This kind of thing is very normal. After Lin Xiangding finished speaking, she seemed to remember something and exclaimed, I forgot that you're so ugly. No one would rape you. Otherwise, you would have been drinking until now and no one would have tried to hit on you. How could Lualuali not hear the sarcasm in her words? Just as she was about to say something, someone came over from the side. Xiangding, why are you here? Aren't you going to the private room? The person who came was Lin Xiangding's good friend, Chao Xian. When she saw Lualuali, she asked, Who is this? Gu Linshan's wife. Lin Xiangding glanced at Lualuali and said, It can't be? What kind of taste does young Master Gu have? How can he eat someone like that? Chao Xian said exaggeratedly. He must have some extraordinary means. Lin Xiangding's eyes were filled with disdain. Chao Xian moved closer to Lualuali to look at her face. Lualuali frowned. Wasn't this person too rude? You have the guts to marry Gu Linshan with that face? If I were you, I'd rather die. You're so ugly. Is your family even uglier? As expected of Lin Xiangding's friend, they were all of the same character. Birds of a feather flock together like this. What did you say? Lualuali was angry and slammed the glass on the table. Why? You want to hear it a second time? Is it not enough for you to hear it once? Fine, I'll say it a second time. With that face, you're also… Before Chao Xian could finish her sentence, Lualuali raised the glass in her hand and splashed all the wine on Chao Xian's face. Chao Xian's makeup was ruined by the water. When Lualuali saw it, she immediately laughed and pointed at her. Aren't you ugly too? You still have the cheek to talk about me? You. Chao Xian was so angry that she went forward to hit Lualuali. However, Lualuali was not to be outdone. She was wearing flats. Why would she be afraid of someone who was wearing high heels? She directly pounced on Chao Xian and pulled her hair to the ground. Chao Xian was wearing high heels. She lost her balance and was knocked to the ground. Who told you to scold my family? Who told you to scold my family? Lualuali slapped Chao Xian's face. What does my ugliness have to do with you? Who do you think you are? Ah! Get out of my way. Xiangding, help me pull her away. Chapter 6:27. However, before she could reach Lualuali, another figure pressed down on her and pulled Lualuali away. Lualuali was in the middle of a fight. Naturally, she was unhappy and wanted to fight with the person who pulled her away. Gu Linshan clamped her hands and fixed them in front of her. He forced her to look at him and said in a low voice, Don't make a scene. The familiar voice made Lualuali sober up a little. The face in front of her was a little shaky. She reached out and put her hands on Gu Linshan's face and pouted unhappily, Don't shake. I can't see you clearly. Lin Xiangding and Chao Xian, who had just gotten up, were shocked. Lualuali was touching Gu Linshan's face. They had known what kind of person Gu Linshan was since they were teenagers. He was definitely a scary person who kept people away. Especially women. And now Lualuali was doing something so reckless. What shocked them even more was that Gu Linshan did not break those two impudent hands. How much did you drink? Gu Linshan's face darkened. Let me think about it. Loli Luo tilted her head and thought about it seriously. I remember now. You are Gu Linshan. Was he asking her that? Also, she had drunk so much that she doubted his existence? No. I can't go back. Lualuali struggled. What do you want to do if you don't go back? Gu Linshan held her waist tightly and did not let her escape. They bullied me and said that I was ugly. They even said that they wanted me to be humiliated here. Don't you think they are too much? Should I teach them a lesson? Lualuali looked up and asked. Gu Linshan's eyes turned cold. They really said that? Yes. I didn't lie to you. Luoluali shook her head and nodded. Gu Linshan glared at Lin Xiangding and Chao Xian and said, "Then get some people here, and let them have a taste of what it's like to be humiliated." Lin Xiangding and Chao Xian's faces turned pale. Lin Xiangting immediately stepped forward. "Linshan, Lolita isn't telling the truth. She misunderstood me." "Misunderstanding?" Gu Linshan's face darkened. "It's a misunderstanding. How could I say that? I know she's your wife, so why would I say something like that to her? Lolita drank so much, she must have heard wrongly." Lin Xiangting suppressed the fear in her heart and explained to Gu Linshan. Gu Linshan's face remained cold, and he did not withdraw his order. Luoluali looked up. She was drunk, but she could still feel the yin qi emanating from Gu Linshan's body. It made her shiver. Gu Linshan seemed to be helping her. She didn't know why, but she felt very comfortable. Once she felt comfortable, she could forget about Lin Xiangding and Chao Xian. "Uncle, let's go back. I've forgiven them, and I don't want to see them," Luoluali said and buried her face in Gu Linshan's chest. Gu Linshan glanced at Lin Xiangding coldly, picked up Luoluali and left the bar. After Luoluali got into the car, Gu Linshan put her in a separate seat. But the alcohol was getting stronger, and she couldn't even sit on the seat. Her body kept sliding down. Gu Linshan's face hardened. He pulled Luoluali over to sit beside him and pressed her against his chest. Luoluali rubbed against Gu Linshan's chest like a cat, as if trying to find a comfortable position. In the end, she buried her face in Gu Linshan's neck and fell asleep just like that. Gu Linshan looked at the drunk girl and his face turned cold. She was still young, but she knew how to drink to drown her sorrows. Gu Linshan's hand attacked Luoluali's hands as a punishment. Luoluali cried out in pain. She twisted her body, trying to escape from the shackles. Why did it hurt so much? Who hit her? Gu Linshan's heart tightened. The girl's faint sweet scent wafted over, making his breathing heavy. He narrowed his eyes, but he couldn't hide the feeling in his body. Back at the mansion, he carried Luoluali back to the room and placed her on the bed. Luoluali's hand was still clutching the corner of Gu Linshan's suit. Her disheveled face was red from the alcohol. She frowned uncomfortably because of the discomfort of being drunk. Her mouth was slightly open. The thirst caused by the alcohol made her mouth open unconsciously. She kept murmuring, "Water, drink water. I want to drink water." Gu Linshan looked down at her from above. His eyes were cold and dark as he stared at the person below him. The vortex-like ripples seemed to be about to swallow her in the next second. Luoluali didn't feel the danger at all. It was as if she was drunk and had been holding onto the body of a beast. "You want to drink water?" Gu Linshan's voice was hoarse. His throat was tight, as if he was the one who was thirsty. Luoluali replied softly. "Here you go." Gu Linshan pressed the glass of water down on Luoluali. Luoluali didn't know what it was. She only felt the liquid coming towards her and drank it like a child. Luoluali didn't know what she was doing. Gu Linshan got angrier the more he looked at her. He threw Luoluali to the side. Luoluali woke up with a splitting headache. When she saw the person lying next to her, "Ah!" Luoluali's screams could pass through the walls. Gu Linshan's eyes were still closed. He couldn't help but frown and growl, "Shut up!" Luoluali shut her mouth. She looked at Gu Linshan's exposed body in horror. Under the light, it was so sexy that it made her heart beat faster. But now, Luoluali's face was not only hot, but also dazed. He wasn't wearing any clothes on top. What about below? Luoluali lowered her head to look at herself. Realizing that she was naked as well, she pulled the blanket up in a panic to check her private parts. Then, she turned to look at Gu Linshan, who had already woken up but looked calm as he leaned against the headboard of the bed. She even lit a cigarette, bit it in her mouth and breathed out smoke lazily. Did you touch me? While I was drunk?" Luoluali's voice was trembling. If that was the case, shouldn't she die to show her regret? No. Gu Linshan puffed out white smoke from his thin lips. His gaze was distant. No? Luo Luoli moved her body. It was sore and a little painful. Her expression changed immediately. You said you didn't touch me. You clearly did. I'm in pain. No. Luo Luoli's face would have turned red if it wasn't for the paint. Why didn't Gu Linshan sound remorseful at all when he said that? Instead, he looked like he found it a pity. But, did Gu Linshan really not touch her like he said? Even if that was the case and he took off all her clothes, he still touched her. Chapter 6:28. Even so, you shouldn't have taken advantage of me. Luo Luoli rebuked him angrily. I told you I didn't. Gu Linshan glanced at Luo Luoli indifferently. Luo Luoli glared at him angrily. She didn't want to talk to him anymore. Turn your face away, Luo Luoli said impatiently when she saw that Gu Linshan wasn't moving. I want to get up. She didn't want to stay in the same bed as Gu Linshan. Even if Gu Linshan didn't go to that extent, she couldn't imagine what Gu Linshan would do to her. And she was completely drunk. Thinking about it, she wanted to kill herself with a piece of tofu. Gu Linshan extinguished his cigarette in the ashtray on the bedside table. Not only did he turn his head away, but he also lifted the blanket and got out of bed. Luo Luoli saw his muscular body exposed in front of her. She was so frightened that she screamed and closed her eyes. Ah! You're so annoying! She crawled under the blanket. Gu Linshan's cold eyes flashed with a smile. He didn't want to disturb her. He went straight to the walk-in closet and put on a shirt. When there was no movement in the bedroom, Luo Luoli poked her head out of the blanket. She didn't see Gu Linshan. She knew that he was in the walk-in closet. The walk-in closet was facing her bed. No, this was Gu Linshan's bed. This was Gu Linshan's room. This was the first time she had slept in Gu Linshan's bed. It was too scary. Luo Luoli glanced at the side of the bed. Her clothes were on the floor. It looked as if they had been ripped off and thrown away. Luo Luoli wanted to cry. Why did she drink? Why did she get found by Gu Linshan? Luo Luoli only thought that she had bumped into Lin Xiangding and her friends at the bar. And they seemed to have gotten into a fight? Then Gu Linshan appeared, returned to the car, and fell asleep. She didn't know anything. How could she be so careless? When Gu Linshan was dressed and appeared in front of her, Luo Luoli drew a line between them and said, In the future, if you see me drinking and fighting in a bar, just pretend you didn't see me. Who are you to tell me this? Niece? Wifey? Gu Linshan looked at her darkly and asked. Dear. Luo Luoli looked at Gu Linshan awkwardly. His unfathomable and repressed gaze made her look away. I don't care who it is. Don't let this happen again. Gu Linshan's eyes were filled with warning. What if there is a next time? Luo Luoli wanted to know where his bottom line was. Then I'll make sure you'll never be able to return home. Luo Luoli stood there with a sullen expression. Gu Linshan glanced at her. Hurry up and come down for breakfast. After saying that, he left the room. Seeing that he had left, Luo Luoli wrapped her body in the quilt and moved out of bed. Then she picked up the clothes scattered on the floor. As she picked them up, her face burned. As soon as she picked them up, the smell of alcohol hit her in the face. She moved her nose closer and sniffed. Oh my God, she almost vomited. Are you sure these are her clothes? Luo Luoli felt like she had lost her memory. She didn't have to be so embarrassed when she opened her eyes. There were no clothes for her in Gu Linshan's room. Therefore, even if she couldn't run to her room like this, she couldn't wear Gu Linshan's clothes or let the maids in the mansion see her wrapped in a quilt. Luo Luoli endured the smell of alcohol on her clothes and put them on one by one. As soon as she opened the door, she bumped into a maid passing by. The maid lowered her head slightly, but Luo Luoli felt embarrassed as if she had been caught in the act. She turned around and ran to her room. Then she slammed the door. She had slept in Gu Linshan's room the whole night. What would other people think if they saw it? The people in the mansion didn't know that she and Gu Linshan were married. Getting a marriage certificate was as normal as going out for a meal. Everyone in the mansion thought that she and Gu Linchen were uncle and niece. However, the niece was already so old. Wasn't it perverted to sleep in the same room with the uncle? Absolutely. However, after Luo put on her clothes, washed up, and went downstairs, the butler and the maids looked normal, as if nothing had happened. On the contrary, only Luo had a guilty conscience and stuck her head out. Gu Linchen's dark eyes all fell on her. He just didn't say anything. The phone on his body rang. Gu Linchen took out his phone, glanced at it, and answered without saying a word. It seemed that the other party was talking, and he was just in charge of listening. Therefore, although Luo pricked up her ears to listen, she couldn't hear anything. She also couldn't find out what was going on from Gu Linchen's mouth. Because Gu Linchen's words were, "Got it, we'll see, that's all," that was it. Even the gods couldn't guess what was going on. He didn't even know who was calling him. "It's old Master Gu's birthday next week. Come with me," Gu Linchen said. Luo didn't know how to react. "Isn't old Master Gu your father? Why are you treating him like an outsider?" "I don't think it's a good idea for me to go, right? Are you sure you'll ruin old Master Gu's mood if you bring me along? Old Master Gu was so angry last time that he probably hasn't recovered yet. You're Mrs. Gu. It's best if you go. No one will dare to say anything about you," Gu Linchen said arrogantly. "How can I not go? What do you think?" Gu Linchen retorted. Was there a need to say more about that threatening gaze? Luo lowered her gaze sullenly. She fiddled with the sandwich on her plate and took a bite absent-mindedly. During the day, Luo would go out alone and wander around. She wondered what she would wear if she attended old Master Gu's birthday. In the display window, she was wearing a loose-fitting casual outfit with sneakers on her feet. Her nose and eyes couldn't even be seen on her face. To be honest, every time she looked in the mirror with such an outfit, she felt like she didn't want to see it a second time. But what was wrong with Gu Linchen? Why was he so hardcore? Did he like someone as ugly as her? She was drunk last night. How could he even touch her? Didn't he vomit on the spot? That was true. Every time they did something intimate, he was like a ferocious lion that made people fear him. It was as if he wanted to hold her in his arms and soak her in his blood. So, he really had hardcore taste. "Hey, who's this?" A sharp, mocking voice sounded. Luo turned her head. She saw Lin Xiangting and the sexily dressed woman beside her. Why did she look so familiar? Luo's mind suddenly whirled as she remembered who this person was. The woman who was fighting in the bar last night, Chao Xian. What a coincidence to bump into her here. Luo and Lin Xiangting's relationship was already on the table. What else was there to be concerned about? So, she turned to leave without saying a word. Who knew that Chao Xian would step forward and block her path? Luo looked at Chao Xian helplessly and asked, "Are you going to fight again?" Chapter 629. When Lin Xiangting saw this, she immediately walked forward and looked at lowly Luo arrogantly. She also gave Chao Xian courage and said, "You said that because you think you're very capable? If Gu Linchen hadn't appeared last night, do you think you could have gotten away with it? Also, if Gu Linchen really wanted to do something to us, why would he let us off? He's just trying to coax you. Don't forget that the Lin family and the Gu family have been on good terms for a long time. Is it worth it to destroy the relationship between the Gu and Lin families for an insignificant person like you? The Gu family still cares about the Lin family after all." Of course, Luo knew about the relationship between the Gu and Lin families. If they weren't on good terms, why would old Master Gu allow the two families to have a marriage alliance? However, saying that the Gu family was afraid of the Lin family was really too flattering. Although she didn't pay attention to business matters, she knew a lot from Luo Meiwan. The Lin family was just dependent on the Gu family. Without the Gu family, the Lin family was a dead crab. Hearing Lin Xiangting's words, Chow Xian's courage rose from the ashes. She laughed coldly. What does she know? If she had this much self-awareness, why would she keep pestering young Master Gu? Oh right, I just remembered that it's old Master Gu's birthday in a few days. The Lin family and my family have all received invitations. I wonder if you're invited too? After all, I heard that old Master Gu doesn't like you very much. But it's not like you can't go. You can beg young Master Gu to take you there. But aren't you afraid of scaring old Master Gu with your looks? Aren't you afraid of embarrassing young Master Gu? There will be a lot of people at the banquet. If you embarrass him, the whole city might know and say that young Master Gu married Zhongwen. Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. Talking about this on the streets will only lower our standard. Lin Xiangting sneered. That's true. We still have to order a dress. We've already made an appointment with the designer. Chow Xian looked at Luoluoli and laughed out loud. Even if you wear a princess dress, it won't change your ugly appearance. The two women mocked each other one after another and went to the women's clothing store next door. Luoluoli stood there and watched them leave with a sense of pride and superiority. She didn't feel anything. She hadn't expected them to go too. It wasn't surprising. They were all rich families who were close with the Gu family. At first, she didn't want to go to old Master Gu's birthday party when Gu Linshan asked her to, but now that Lin Xiangting and the others were making things difficult for her, she wanted to go. A few days. They had booked an entire floor of the luxurious hotel. The decorations were magnificent, and the food was exquisite and delicious. Old Master Gu had invited guests to come and go. Before long, there was a commotion at the door. Gu Linshan appeared at the entrance of the banquet. His posture was straight and his temperament was outstanding. There was no lowly Luo by his side, not even a female companion. This was what Gu Linshan used to do. Old Master Gu saw him at first glance. When he didn't see Luoluoli, his expression became better. He was afraid that Luoluoli would appear. He couldn't afford to lose face with that kind of dress and that kind of behavior. Did you see that? Luoluoli didn't come. Chow Xian immediately said to Lin Xiangting, her face full of joy. How would she dare to come? She's so dignified. Anyone who sees her will have nightmares, let alone old Master Gu. Lin Xiangting said sarcastically. Who are you talking about? Xiangting, young Master Gu is here. Why aren't you reacting? Even if you know that other people aren't as good as you, your calmness will make others jealous. The other women at the party flattered. That's right. Xiangting is the most beautiful person at this party. Everyone will be overshadowed by you. Another woman also flattered. Lin Xiangting had a smile on her face as she calmly took a sip of champagne. Chow Xian, who are you talking about? Let us hear it. Chow Xian said with a smile. It doesn't matter whether you say it or not. We're talking about an ugly woman. Although she said that, the topic of ugly women piqued their interest. Because they were all beauties. It was hard to imagine how ugly the woman was. Then all the more you have to say it. Let us be happy too. Chow Xian said, a woman who is pestering young Master Gu. I secretly took a photo of her. Then you'll know how ugly she is. As she said that, she took out a photo of Luoluoli on her phone and showed it to the women who surrounded her. Then they heard exclamations one after another. No way? How can she be so ugly? She looks like a pervert. What? A pervert is much better looking than her. Such a woman isn't even fit to carry Xiangting's shoes. That's right. Can't she have some self-awareness? The comparison between a swan and an ugly duckling. At this moment, Luoluoli had already put on a beautiful white gown in the room. The design was beautiful and unique. Her beautiful shoulders were slightly exposed, and her skin was fairer than snow. She looked like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. But when she saw that face and that exploding head, she felt that this beautiful gift had been ruined. She pulled at the instant noodle hair on her head. She felt that she should change her hairstyle and return to her old self. Gu Linshan greeted the people who came up to greet him. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window in the lounge area and lit a cigarette. He raised his wrist and looked at the time on his watch. Luoluoli hadn't arrived yet. He shouldn't have let her come here alone. Even if he had asked his driver to drive her here, he couldn't help but feel irritated. His whole body was shrouded in cold air. After smoking, he returned to the banquet hall, but Luoluoli was still nowhere to be seen. Gu Linshan's face was gloomy. If she didn't come, he would never forgive her. Look, young Master Gu seems to be very impatient. He looked at his watch several times. The women around Lin Xiangding started gossiping again. Wow, that watch is a limited edition. It's worth a lot. Your focus is really strange. Then what's your focus? Why does young Master Gu keep looking at the time? It can't be that ugly woman is coming, right? No way? If she comes. The woman who spoke couldn't help but look at Lin Xiangding. Lin Xiangding didn't like the look of pity that she had been abandoned. But she sneered in her heart and looked calm on the surface. If Luoluoli really came to such an occasion, she would embarrass Gu Linshan. If things went wrong, Luoluoli might even be chased out. Gu Linshan had always been sacred and inviolable. If she offended him, it would be pardonable for her to be divorced. Chao Xian was a superficial and flamboyant woman. She spoke up for Lin Xiangding. What do you know? It's better if she comes. She can show you how ugly that woman is. Chapter 630. Old Master Gu walked over to Gu Linshan. You were right not to bring her here. How could she be suitable for such an occasion? I've thought about it. I was the one who forced you to get married in the beginning, so you impulsively found someone like that to brush me off. I won't force you in the future. It was rare for old Master Gu to speak so humbly. However, this humble tone was only because he had no choice but to do this to his son. I'm already married. Save it. Gu Linshan's expression was cold. Old Master Gu's expression changed, but he suppressed his anger. I'm doing this for your own good. If you attend any important events in the future, are you going to bring that ugly girl with you? She's very pretty, Gu Linshan said expressionlessly. Old Master Gu's face twitched. He was old, not blind. Gu Linshan didn't care whether Luoluoli was pretty or ugly. Wasn't she deliberately going against him by marrying Luoluoli? As long as you divorce her, I won't say a word about your marriage in the future. Anyway, such an ugly woman will ruin your reputation. She's not suitable. Old Master Gu didn't finish his sentence. There was another commotion at the door. Gu Linshan instinctively turned to look. A beautiful white figure entered the banquet hall. She was so beautiful that everyone gasped in amazement. Her beautiful little face was a little dazed, like a lost elf in the forest. She didn't look like a beauty of the human world. No one knew who this young girl was. Even if one had to show an invitation to enter, who would want an invitation at this time? She was so pure, clean, and beautiful. Her long hair casually draped over her beautiful shoulders, but she still easily outshone all the beauties present. In front of her, the beauties became ugly. Lin Xiangding and the others' expressions became very ugly. They didn't know where this person came from. They really wanted her to disappear. However, that was impossible. Luoluoli stood in the banquet hall and looked around. She immediately saw Gu Linshan in the distance. He had an outstanding figure and a cold temperament. She jogged forward and lowered her head. After changing her appearance, she was not used to being stared at by so many people. It was as if she was a delicacy. Running in front of Gu Linshan, Luoluoli raised her beautiful little face and said, "Little uncle, I'm sorry I'm late." Gu Linshan retracted his gaze from Luoluoli's face and looked elsewhere. His expression was unfathomably calm. Just as Luoluoli was wondering why Gu Linshan was ignoring her, old Master Gu, who was beside her, was still in a daze. This voice, this face, wasn't it Luoluoli? Old Master Gu's memory was not bad. He did not forget when Luo Meiwan brought Luo Luoli back to the Gu family more than 10 years ago. That little girl was obedient, exquisite, and had big round eyes. Now that she had grown up, she was even more beautiful than when she was young. Lin Xiangting and Chao Xian stared at Luo Luoli as if they had seen a ghost. It was as if they wanted to use their infrared vision to separate Luo Luoli from head to toe and tear apart her disguise. However, even if it was plastic surgery, it was impossible to recover to this extent in one night. This meant that Luo Luoli's ugly appearance in the past was painted by herself. Lin Xiangting was so angry that the hand holding the champagne glass trembled. "Didn't you say it was an ugly girl? Who is this person?" The woman beside her asked again. This undoubtedly stabbed a knife into Lin Xiangting's heart, causing her to bleed profusely. Lin Xiangting was already very beautiful. I didn't expect Lin Xiangting to become so mediocre when this person appeared. Someone whispered in her ear. However, Lin Xiangting heard it. Her expression was almost ferocious. She was so angry that she turned and left the banquet hall. Chao Xian immediately followed her. Her face had been slapped. She definitely did not want to stay here. "Old Master Gu, is this your granddaughter? How incredible! So outstanding!" A business partner walked over and said enviously. Old Master Gu came back to his senses and smiled awkwardly. He did not have a daughter, so how could he have a granddaughter? However, Luo Luoli called Gu Linshan uncle. Wasn't she his granddaughter? However, Old Master Gu couldn't refuse in front of so many people if he wanted to flatter himself. Other than smiling awkwardly, he could not say anything. Luo Luoli had come to Old Master Gu's banquet not only to recover her appearance to fight for herself, but also to divert Gu Linshan's attention from her. Her mother, Luo Meiwan, was also there. Luo Meiwan definitely knew about this. However, if she could not come, Old Master Gu would definitely not invite her. Therefore, she deliberately called Gu Linshan little uncle. Moreover, it was understandable. If she did not call him little uncle, should she call him hubby? She did not want to. Then, Luo Luoli took the opportunity to call Old Master Gu grandfather. She called him grandfather so loudly that everyone in the banquet hall could hear it. Old Master Gu regretted holding this birthday banquet. Under everyone's gaze, he could not nod or shake his head. He only said, "Didn't I tell you not to come over?" To outsiders, these words sounded like he was angry that Luo Luoli had come late. "That's right, Old Master Gu. Why are you angry? Can you bear to be angry? You won't even let us see such a beautiful granddaughter. Are you afraid that she will become our daughter-in-law? Ha!" After that person finished speaking, he laughed out loud. However, before he could finish laughing, Gu Linshan's gaze turned towards him. It made his hair stand on end. His laughter got stuck in his throat and could not come out. Although he did not know why Gu Linshan's gaze was so scary, he knew that this son of the Gu family was even more difficult to please than Old Master Gu. Come. Don't play with the child. Let's go over there and talk." Old Master Gu hurriedly led his close business partners to the other side. He did not want to talk to them about Luo Luoli, this granddaughter of his. Gu Linshan directly dragged Luo Luoli into the lounge. A pair of cold eyes stared at her, who had changed her appearance. "What's wrong? Little uncle, do I look good like this?" As Luo Luoli spoke, she lifted the hem of her dress with both hands and twirled in front of Gu Linshan. The hem of her dress fluttered lightly. Her hair, which was no longer as smooth as silk, fell over her shoulders. It was a natural beauty. However, Gu Linshan looked at her without saying a word. "Little uncle, why aren't you saying anything?" Luo Luoli felt that Gu Linshan definitely did not like her appearance. Otherwise, he would not have such a calm expression and even exuded a faint chill. Luo Luoli was pleased with herself. She moved her face forward until it was only a few centimeters away from Gu Linshan's face. Chapter 631. Little uncle, don't you think I look good like this? Sigh, it can't be helped. Actually, this is my real face. My previous appearance was just a disguise. I didn't mean to lie to you. Little uncle, don't be too disappointed. This may be fate, Lualuali said with a sigh. In fact, she was overjoyed. Would Gu Linshan be too disappointed and divorce her? Disappointed about what? Disappointed that I'm not ugly, Lualuali said matter-of-factly. Then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. What do you mean? Lualuali was stunned. If I'm ugly, I can't bear to kiss her, let alone beautiful ones. Do you understand what I mean? Lualuali didn't understand. She knew what Gu Linshan meant, but she didn't understand why his preferences were so strange. Don't you only like ugly women? I'm just not picky. Not picky? If others heard this, they would be dumbfounded. Gu Linshan was famous for being picky when it came to women. He had never had a woman by his side. People who didn't know him would think that he was not interested in women. Lualuali was anxious. She pulled Gu Linshan's arm and said, "How can you not be picky? I want both the ugly ones and the pretty ones. Why do I have to be the one?" Gu Linshan grabbed her wrist and pulled her closer to him. Their faces were even closer than before. Lualuali shrank back. It has to be you. It has to be you in this lifetime. I won't do it. It's not up to you. Lualuali's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She stared at the overbearing and unreasonable Gu Linshan. Wasn't this person too much? Not only did he want to dominate her, but he also wanted to be a hooligan. Gu Linshan looked at Lualuali's shocked expression. He could see the color change on her face even more clearly, even if it was just a slight expression. He clasped her chin to prove that what he said was true. Then, he pressed his cold face down and kissed her. Lualuali widened her eyes in shock, and her fair face was instantly dyed a clear red. The feeling that belonged to Gu Linshan was spreading strongly. When she came back to her senses, she immediately wanted to push Gu Linshan away. Can't this person be more considerate of the occasion? It would be bad if old Master Gu saw it, but it would be worse if other people saw it. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, they were nieces and uncles. Wasn't this a mess? However, her strength was no match for Gu Linshan. Gu Linshan was always so domineering. When it was finally over, Lualuali was gasping for breath. Tears welled up in her eyes as she glared at Gu Linshan. Gu Linshan's rough fingers slid over Lualuali's delicate and fair hand. His movements were very gentle, as if he would cut her skin if he used too much force. "This is the first time I've seen you so beautiful." Gu Linshan's voice was hoarse. After her brain was filled with oxygen, Lualuali gradually regained consciousness. When she heard Gu Linshan's words, her face became even redder. She angrily pushed Gu Linshan's hand away and took a few steps back. "I really miscalculated. If I had known, I wouldn't have become like this. No matter what kind of face you have to be by my side. You are Gu Linshan's woman. You'd better realize this as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will be the one suffering." Gu Linshan threatened her. "But I'm only 18 years old. You're an old cow eating young grass." Lualuali was anxious and angry. "What did you say? Say it again." Lualuali pursed her lips and stopped talking. She took a big step back in fear. She was afraid that she would be hurt by Gu Linshan's evil aura. "I'm an old cow eating young grass? You're right. I like a young grass like you. What do you think?" Gu Linshan smiled coldly. His evil eyes were extremely roguish. Lualuali's level was no match for Gu Linshan's. She had lost her disguise and the blush on her face was obvious. It added to her shyness. She turned around and left. She didn't want to stay here for a second longer. "Where are you going?" Gu Linshan shouted. "To the toilet." "Can't I?" Lualuali left without looking back. Gu Linshan's dark eyes were filled with a smile. Lualuali angrily went to the toilet. Her face in the mirror was beautiful. Her skin was fair and flawless. Compared to before, it was like heaven and earth. However, Luo felt that she was an eyesore. How could Gu Linshan be like this? He wanted both the ugly and the beautiful. She really couldn't understand him. If she had understood him, she wouldn't be in this situation where she had no way out. It was too late for regrets. When she arrived at the banquet hall, she saw Gu Linshan talking to other guests from afar. Luo didn't go over. She casually found a seat and sat down to slowly eat. As for alcohol, she didn't dare to drink. When she thought of the unimaginable things Gu Linshan did to her when she was drunk, her face inexplicably turned red. Luo's appearance had already made the men at the banquet restless, not to mention her blushing face at this moment. As long as it was a man, he wanted to go up and hit on her. One of the men boldly went up and handed her a glass of fruit juice. Luo looked at the fruit juice in front of her and was stunned. "For me. I don't think you're fit to drink." Luo didn't even have to look in Gu Linshan's direction to feel his sharp gaze. It made her body stiffen. Every nerve in her body was stretched taut. "What's wrong? It's delicious. I specially poured it for you." The man saw Luo hesitate and continued to curry favor. "No, I don't like fruit juice." She didn't care if she rejected him or embarrassed him. After all, being kind to a man was being cruel to herself. If she drank this fruit juice, Gu Linshan wouldn't let her go when she went back. "You're not going to give me face?" the man said in a joking tone. "All right, I won't drink it." The drink was set aside. Luo thought that he would leave after being rejected. She didn't expect the man to sit directly next to her. She was so shocked that she froze. "What are you doing sitting here?" Luo's hair stood on end. She was terrified and instinctively asked. "You don't have to be so nervous." "I'm just sitting here," the man said gently and politely. Luo looked at him warily. She was panicking as if she was guarding against an enemy. Don't have to be nervous? She was too nervous. She felt that the entire banquet hall had become dozens of degrees colder. She was so cold that she was trembling. "Then sit down. I'm leaving." She didn't want to suffer. However, just as she was about to stand up, the man reached out and grabbed her, wanting to make her stay. Chapter 632. Everyone in the banquet hall was shocked. When old Master Gu saw Gu Linshan walking towards Luo, he knew that something bad had happened. He didn't expect Gu Linshan to be so impudent. He didn't care about the occasion at all. He was so angry that the flesh on his face was trembling. The people attending this banquet were not ordinary people. The man who had been beaten up was the son of an important guest. What was wrong with a man and a woman being of equal social status? When old Master Gu thought of Gu Linshan and Luo's current relationship as husband and wife, he felt as if he had eaten Chinese gold thread. He couldn't speak of his bitterness. The so-called gentleman was kicked to the ground. When he got up from the ground, he was dumbfounded. When he met Gu Linshan's terrifying gaze, the words he wanted to explain were stuck in his throat. He couldn't say anything. Gu Linshan grabbed Luo's wrist and dragged her out of the banquet hall. No one dared to say anything. Luo's wrist hurt from being pulled. "My hand hurts." Luo shook her hand, but she couldn't get rid of the shackles. This person was really too much. Didn't he know how strong her hand was? She was going to leave a red mark on her wrist. Gu Linshan's face was cold. He dragged Luo into the car before letting her go. Luo rubbed her wrist, feeling wronged. "What are you doing? What did I do wrong? Go back and put on makeup. Cover your face," Gu Linshan ordered. Luo was stunned. Was this for real? She asked with uncertainty and excitement. "You don't like my face now?" "I don't like it." "Then all the more I can't put on makeup. Just like this, it's beautiful. I like it." Luo's mood improved. Gu Linshan had never been angry with anyone in his life. If anyone made him feel uncomfortable, he wouldn't let that person live to see the next day. Lualuali was very proud. She fiddled with her skirt and tidied her slightly messy hair. Her little face was flushed red. Just as she was feeling proud, her vision darkened. Gulinshan's shadow was pressing down on her. Loli Lua was dumbfounded and shocked as she looked at the person who was pressing down on her from above. Wasn't this too scary? What are you doing? Gu reached out his hand and hooked Luali's chin. If you don't want to put on makeup, I should lock you. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble if you mess with a man outside. Gu Linshan stared at the girl under him with a possessive look. Luali's heart. Was this the reason why she had to put makeup on her face? If she didn't put on makeup, she would definitely attract men. At that time, she would really be unlucky. Gu Linshan's reminder, no, this warning hit her head like a hammer, making her dizzy. How about this, I'll put on makeup when I go out. I won't put on makeup at home. Is that okay? She was being pressed down by the devil's claws. You should be so obedient. Lualuali thought. She didn't want to be obedient. Gu Linshan was more difficult to deal with than anyone else. She would be the one who would suffer. Lan Wanru was drinking medicine in the room. She drank all the medicine in the bowl in one gulp. The bitterness made her frown. Belle looked at her and said, "Miss, is the medicine more bitter than before? Why don't I get some sugar for you? After drinking the medicine, you can put a sugar in your mouth. Then it won't be so bitter." The medicine is as bitter as before. When did you see me put a sugar in my mouth? I just feel that the bitterness of the medicine made me think of my current situation. What's more bitter than not being able to get Brother Haotian's love? Lan Wanru handed the empty bowl to Belle. Belle took it and said worriedly for Lan Wanru, "In 3 months, Tang Bao will give birth." 3 months. Lan Wanru supported her head with her hands. She looked sleepy and tired. "Miss, are you okay?" Although it said 3 months, there are still 90 days left. There's still time to think of a solution. Belle comforted her. "I think, if Auntie knows that the child in Tang Bao's belly is not Brother Haotian's, she won't let it go." "That's right. Miss, if you tell old Madam that, she will definitely make Tang Bao abort the child in her belly. Anyway, we've already done it once, so it doesn't matter if we do it a second time. I'm going to visit Auntie today, but I don't dare to say it. I'm afraid that Auntie won't believe me and will think that I'm a scheming woman. She will stop me from contacting Brother Haotian. I'm really worried and scared," Lan Wanru said dejectedly. She looked very weak. Belle's eyes turned and said, "Miss, I have an idea." "What?" Belle went forward and whispered a few words in Lan Wanru's ear. Lan Wanru looked worried. "Is this okay?" Of course. When the truth comes out, who would care about who was the one who said it? Lan Wanru didn't say anything. She looked down and her eyes shone with a calculating light. When they arrived at the bungalow, Lan Wanru went in to look for Yu Songhuan. Belle looked like she didn't care as she strolled around outside the house. When she saw a servant weeding in the distance, she walked over to help. The servant naturally knew Belle. Every time Lan Wanru came, Belle would be there. "Sister Belle, how can I let you help with this kind of work?" the servant in the bungalow said embarrassedly. "That's right. You'll be by Miss Lan's side in the D family. When Miss Lan marries young Master D in the future, you'll have a meteoric rise. Don't talk nonsense." Belle denied it verbally, but she couldn't hide the joy in her heart. She had always thought that as long as Lan Wanru married Di Haotian, she would naturally have a meteoric rise. In the castle, the title of a supervisor was enough to make outsiders wary. The more she thought about the glory and status it would bring her in the future, the more Belle wanted to do things well. Her expression changed. "But why do you think so? Did you hear the news too?" "What news?" The servant was stunned. "I only heard it from rumors. I might not be able to take it seriously." Belle had an expression that was difficult to say. "Sister Belle, what's going on? Can you tell us?" "That's right. Anyway, only we're talking about it. We won't spread it elsewhere." Belle looked at the servants' gossipy expressions and sighed helplessly. She said reluctantly, "Okay, I can tell you, but you can't spread it." "Definitely not," the servant promised. Belle looked around and saw that there was no one else. She lowered her voice and said, "I heard that the child in young Madame's stomach isn't young Master D's." "What? It's not young Master D's?" the servant exclaimed. Belle tugged at her and said, "Keep your voice down." "I'm sorry. I was too surprised." "That's right. How could it not be young Master D's? Then whose is it?" Chapter 633. Belle denied the authenticity of the incident and left people with a lot of questions. Seeing that the servants were still in a daze, Belle patted the dust off her hands and stood up. "Okay, don't talk nonsense. I'm going to find Lan Wanru first." With that, she left. When Lan Wanru saw Belle appear at the door, she didn't stay for long and left. These 2 days, Yu Songhuan was ready to go to the temple to burn incense. She wanted to pray for Tang Bao's safety and give birth to the twins smoothly. She personally prepared the food for the bodhisattva and checked every dish carefully. Old Madam has really put in a lot of effort for the 2 children. Auntie Wang stood at the side and couldn't help. Yu Songhuan smiled. "As long as my 2 grandsons are safe, this little effort is nothing." "Oh right, after praying for their safety, accompany me to the children's luxury shop to take a look." "Okay. The children haven't been born yet, but old Madam wants to give them the best. I don't even dare to think about giving birth to them. They're really lucky to have such a good grandmother." Auntie Wang smiled. Yu Songhuan was in a good mood and had a smile on his face. "Pack all these up." "Yes." After everything was packed, they prepared to leave. Just as she was about to step out of the door, 2 servants were hiding in the corner and talking to each other. "Is this true or not? Young Madam wouldn't do such a thing, right? If the child isn't the young master's and is someone else's child, it will be found out one day. A paternity test will be exposed with one poke. You don't know this. Some women will do anything for wealth and glory. You have to know that if the young master doesn't know that the child in the stomach is his, then young Madam has won the bet. Although it's a little risky, if she succeeds, she will have everything. This is called seeking fortune in danger." With a bang, the things in Auntie Wang's hands fell to the ground. Auntie Wang's face was a little pale as she looked at the scattered food on the ground. She didn't know if it was because she was frightened by those words or because she had caused trouble by dropping the food that she had carefully prepared. He froze there, not knowing whether he should pick up the things on the ground. To be honest, she had never encountered such a tricky situation while working with Yu Songhuan. Hearing the commotion behind them, the servants, who were chatting happily, turned around. When they saw Yu Songhuan, they were scared out of their wit. Old Madam, at this moment, Yu Songhuan's face was ashen. His whole body was trembling as he looked at the servants who were talking. "Where did you hear those words from just now?" Yu Songhuan asked angrily. The servants lowered their heads and didn't say anything, but they were frightened. He regretted that he had said something he shouldn't have. Yu Songhuan suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "As long as you tell me, I'll spare you. Otherwise, I'll bury you alive one by one." Old Madam, we heard it from Bailey, who is by Lan's side. She heard that the child in young Madam's stomach isn't young master's. We don't know anything." Yu Songhuan was so angry that he almost had a heart attack. His eyes were full of anger. If she guessed correctly, this happened because Lan Wanru came over 2 days ago. And Lan Wanru didn't mention anything to her. But when she thought about Lan Wanru's expression that day, she thought that he was feeling unwell. In the end, Lan Wanru did say that he was going back to rest. She didn't suspect anything else. Bailey must have said it because she and the other servants were gossiping. So there was such a thing? Then, why would Lan Wanru think so? "Old Madam, don't think too much. These servants must be gossiping. It's because I didn't manage them well," Auntie Wang said cautiously. Lan Wanru must know something. Yu Songhuan guessed. Why do you say that, old madam? Don't forget that Tang Bao and Di Junbai used to have an ambiguous relationship. If she wasn't pregnant, I would never allow such an indecent woman to stay by Haotian's side. I think that Lan Wanru and Di Junbai interact every day. She must have found out something. Old madam, these are all guesses without any evidence. Could it be false? It's best if it's false. If it's true, I won't let her off. What do you want to do, old madam? For the purity of the Di family's bloodline, Tang Bao must do a paternity test. Anyway, even if the child isn't born yet, the amniotic fluid can be used for the test, Yu Songhuan said firmly. Then we need to let young master know, right? We need to take a sample to do a paternity test. There's no need to let him know. I just need to show him the results. When the time comes, we can use the cup he used to test it. If it's Haotian's child, I'll pretend that this never happened. If it's not, Haotian will personally get rid of Tang Bao without me saying anything. Yu Songhuan thought about how his son, who was famous all his life, was fooled by a little girl. The expression on his face couldn't help but become bitter and sad. Just a moment ago, she was still happily praying for her unborn grandson. Now that this had happened, her mood fell to the bottom. At this moment, Tang Bao didn't know that she was being suspected at all. Every day, she looked forward to the moment when the child was born. She was extremely nervous. She was considering whether to have a natural birth or a C-section. A natural birth was good for the child. She wanted a natural birth. However, she thought about it again. She wasn't pregnant with one child, but two. Could she have a natural birth? No, she had to ask Di Haotian. After dinner, Di Haotian went to the study, and Tang Bao went to the study. She went straight in without knocking on the door. Di Haotian's gaze fell on the computer screen in front of him. Tang Bao's behavior of coming in without knocking did not make him unhappy at all. It was as if the only person who dared to come in like this was Tang Bao. He didn't even need to look. Di Haotian, let me ask you something. Tang Bao moved to the side of the desk. Do you think I should have a natural birth or a C-section? Di Haotian's gaze moved slightly. His attention was attracted by Tang Bao's words. He directly decided. C-section. Why? A natural birth is good for the child. Tang Bao didn't understand. She thought that Di Haotian didn't know which birth method was best for the child. She might as well tell him directly. Di Haotian's dark eyes sharpened. Can you give birth to the child naturally? Why can't I give birth? Since you came to ask me, it's up to me to decide. Tang Bao bit her lip. This person was really domineering. If she had known, she wouldn't have come to ask him. However, even if she didn't ask, in the end, Di Haotian would still be the one to make the decision. She had no right to make her own decision at all. Chapter 634. Di Haotian was slightly stunned, and then looked at her with his black eyes with madness and ridicule. So you're worried that I won't be interested in you because of a scar. Don't worry, with your beauty, even if you have a scar on your body, it won't affect my interest in you. Tang Bao's fair face couldn't help but blush. She retorted, when did I say that? I'm purely a beauty lover. Don't quibble, Di Haotian said lightly. Tang Bao was forced to stomp her feet. She turned around and wanted to leave, but she still had something to say to Di Haotian. The child is going to be born in 3 months. I want to buy some clothes and shoes for the child and put them in their nursery. It's all ready. But I didn't buy those. I want to buy some for them personally. Please, take me out for a walk. Tang Bao grabbed Di Haotian's sleeve and tugged gently. Di Haotian, if you don't take me out, I'll keep disturbing your work. The next day, Di Haotian didn't go to tea. Instead, he accompanied Tang Bao to the children's luxury store. After entering, Tang Bao was looking at all kinds of baby product. Di Haotian stood beside her. His face had always been cold, and it was frightening that strangers couldn't get close to him. The cold air emitted from his body made the entire children's luxury store drop by more than 10 degrees. He shouldn't have agreed to come. No one knew what he was thinking. After being pestered by Tang Bao, he finally agreed. The shop assistant stood far away and didn't dare to get close at all. She carefully gossiped. That seems to be the king of D City, D Haotian. God, he actually accompanied a pregnant woman to buy baby products. He's so down to earth. Who is that pregnant woman to him? Is she his sister? But I've never heard that D Haotian has a sister? It must be his sister. I've never heard that D Haotian is married. If he's not married, how can he have a child? Then could she be a lover or something? Rich and powerful men don't like to bind themselves with marriage, but there are still a lot of women who are willing to give birth to children for him, even if they don't have a status. Yes. I also want to give birth to little monkeys for young Master D without any status. Tang Bao looked at those things and casually picked them up. They were worth tens of thousands. She was so shocked that she was dumbfounded. D Haotian, are you sure you want to buy them here? D Haotian furrowed his brows and stared at Tang Bao. His gaze was sharp, but he did not say a word. The things here are ridiculously expensive. I heard that children grow very quickly after they are born. They can't wait to grow a lot in just a few days. If you buy them, they won't be able to wear them for a few days. Isn't it too wasteful? Tang Bao felt that there was no need for children to wear such nice clothes. Then do you think my child should wear cheap clothes? D Haotian's black eyes were cold. Tang Bao was speechless. It was indeed unnecessary for the child of the Emperor City's king to wear goods from a street stall. It didn't match his status either. She even felt that even if the child wore goods from a street stall, as long as others knew that they were D Haotian's son or daughter, they would think that it was a famous brand. However, after thinking about it, since D Haotian had brought her here, he would definitely not let the child wear low-grade clothes, even if it was a diaper that would be thrown away after use. Therefore, Tang Bao did not talk about this topic. When she was choosing, she was in a dilemma again. D Haotian, do you think I should buy men's clothes or women's clothes? I don't even know if it's a boy or a girl in my stomach. I'll buy both. Then what if it's a boy or a girl? What if you buy extra? Tang Bao asked. Do you think I can't afford to waste it? D Haotian looked at her coldly, then changed the topic. If you're worried about wasting it, you can just have another one. Tang Bao felt the entire air heating up. She glared at him. No way. Then, she ignored D Haotian and turned to look at the clothes that the baby was wearing. Tang Bao chose a few boys' and girls' clothes and shoes from the children's luxury store. The more she looked at them, the cuter they were, especially the little shoes. They were not even as big as her palm. So, she bought a few more pairs. Then, when D Haotian was paying the bill, Tang Bao heard that it was 1.2 million yuan. She was so scared that her hands trembled. When Ju was carrying the things out, she looked over weakly. It was really a luxury store. It was too extravagant. Those things were bought at a better store, at most, tens of thousands of yuan. That was already very good. So, D Haotian grew up eating diamonds. Then, would it be harder for his children to raise in the future? If she had to raise them like this, she would not be able to raise them. After Tang Bao's belly grew bigger and bigger, she could not sleep well at night, especially in the past 2 days. She would wake up at night. Tang Bao slept on her side, and D Haotian was behind her. She quietly turned around, and D Haotian's sharp face, who was sleeping soundly, crashed into her heart with a strong impact. Tang Bao stared at him in a daze for a while, then quietly got up from the bed. She got out of bed. She left the room and walked to the baby's room. Tang Bao only found out after the baby's room was ready. At that time, she was still thinking about when to tell D Haotian that the child needed a baby's room. She did not expect that it had already been ready. However, there was one thing that she was very dissatisfied with and did not understand. There were so many rooms. Why did the baby's room have to be so far away from the master bedroom? Although she was dissatisfied, it was a little annoying to move it after it was done. However, the most important thing was that this was Di Haotian's intention. Who would dare to go against his wishes? Tang Bao pushed open the door of the baby's room. The inside was cute and dreamy. Whether it was the design of the room or the baby products, they were all prepared by Lian. Fortunately, she went to buy some things for the child today, including toys. Tang Bao picked up the little yellow duck that was placed on the decorative cabinet. She did not know who bought it, but she held it in her palm and looked at it carefully. She squeezed it playfully, and it immediately let out a duck cry. Tang Bao was startled, and then she laughed. Di Haotian, who was standing outside the baby's room, did not come in. He just silently looked at the pure and happy smile on Tang Bao's face. His dark eyes rippled deeply, including his heart. When Tang Bao turned around, she saw the tall figure outside the door. She put down the little yellow duck guiltily, walked over, and said, "Did I wake you up? When I got up, you seemed to be still asleep. What are you doing here?" Di Haotian did not say that he was already awake when Tang Bao moved in bed. Not to mention that she got out of bed. "I couldn't sleep, so I came out for a walk. I walked into the baby's room." "Go back to sleep." Tang Bao pursed her lips, turned around, and closed the door of the baby's room. She still wanted to look at the baby for a while. Since she was discovered by Di Haotian, it was better to look at the baby during the day. During the day, when Di Haotian was not in the castle, Tang Bao went to the baby's room and looked around, imagining that her children would sleep, play, and be happy here. Chapter 635. It was pocket-sized and could be used as an ornament. She took it out and began to assemble the wooden horse. She still needed to study it. As she studied it, she assembled it. "It's done." Tang Bao smiled. "There are two. Just nice, one for each of us." Thus, Tang Bao began to assemble the other one. The second one was much easier to assemble. When the small wooden horse was halfway assembled, Zhang Li walked in and said, "Young madam, old madam is here." Tang Bao was stunned. Yu Songhuan was here? Thinking of how she had no choice but to accept her attitude the last time, she must have come to see the twins in her belly this time. Tang Bao put the unassembled wooden horse aside and prepared to come back later to assemble it. There was no hurry. She stood up and left the baby's room. "Young madam, why don't I tell old madam that it's inconvenient for you to go downstairs now that you're pregnant and ask her to come up? The babies in your belly are her grandchildren. She should want to see them, right?" Zhang Li said a little angrily. "Forget it. Help me. I'm the younger one. Of course, I'll go and see her." In this regard, Tang Bao didn't care. There was no need to make Yu Songhuan hate her more for such a small matter. She would be fine as long as she was careful. With Zhang Li's help, Tang Bao went downstairs and walked into the living room. Yu Songhuan was sitting on the sofa and drinking tea poured by the servant. Tang Bao walked over and said, "Mom." Yu Songhuan looked up and glanced at Tang Bao's belly, which was much bigger than before, then looked away coldly. Tang Bao sat down on the sofa, and Zhang Li stood not far away. Yu Songhuan didn't chase them away. Tang Bao wanted to take the initiative to speak, but he was afraid that Yu Songhuan would be unhappy, so he froze there and didn't say a word. "What are you doing?" Yu Songhuan spoke. "Stay in the nursery." With a smile on his face, Tang Bao thought of something and quickly said, "Mom, the nursery is ready. Why don't you go take a look? The design style inside is very dreamy and cute." "No need. I'll have plenty of time to read it in the future." Yu Songhuan flatly refused. Although Tang Bao was a little surprised, he did not say much. He only said, "That's fine too." "Who was in charge of the nursery?" Yu Songhuan asked. "It's Di Haotian." "I think so too." Yu Songhuan looked down indifferently at the tea in his cup and said, "As long as it's his own child, he would do the same." When Tang Bao heard Yu Songhuan's words, he didn't know why, but he felt that there was something strange about it. But when he thought about it, perhaps Yu Song-hwan was trying to express that all parents in the world are of one mind. It was just that she was thinking too much because she was pregnant. Yeah, even the layout of the nursery was prepared by Di Haotian. Yu Song-hwan's expression changed slightly, but he didn't want to continue this topic. He raised his expressionless face and said, "How about this? Come to my bungalow for lunch. You haven't been to my place in a long time." Tang Bao was surprised by Yu Song-hwan's invitation. She knew very well that Yu Song-hwan didn't like her. It seemed that Yu Song-hwan had also compromised for the sake of the child in her belly. "Mom, since you're already here, why don't you eat here? You don't have to run around," Tang Bao said. "Are you afraid that I'll run around, or do you not want to go to my place? Or do you think that I'll harm you if you go to my place?" Yu Song-hwan looked unhappy. "That's not what I meant," Tang Bao hurriedly said. "You're pregnant with my grandson now. Even if I don't like you, I won't harm the bloodline of the Di family." Yu Song-hwan glanced indifferently at her huge belly and said, "I'll call Haotian and tell him. When the time comes, I'll personally send you back to the castle." If Tang Bao refused again, Yu Song-hwan would fall out with her. It seemed that Yu Song-hwan had specially come to pick her up for lunch. "Okay then, I'll go over for lunch," Tang Bao agreed. Zhang Li, who had been standing not far away and hoping that Tang Bao wouldn't agree, heard Tang Bao's words and immediately said, "Old madam, should I go too?" Yu Song-hwan's expression became stern. "Do you think that my people can't take care of her?" Zhang Li still wanted to say something, but Tang Bao beat him to it and said, "It doesn't matter. What can happen if I go to the bungalow? She was brought there by Yu Song-hwan. If something happened to her, then it would be Yu Song-hwan's fault. The loss of their first child was done in secret. Yu Song-hwan wasn't stupid enough to do something so blatant. After knowing Yu Song-hwan for so long, she knew how scheming he was. If he wanted to hurt her, he would never let Di Haotian know." Tang Bao got into Yu Song-hwan's car and sat in the same car as Yu Song-hwan. She wanted to liven up the atmosphere and improve her relationship with Yu Song-hwan. However, looking at Yu Song-hwan's expression, it didn't seem like he was going to take her to the bungalow for lunch. "Mom, how about I call Di Haotian?" Tang Bao asked. "What's the hurry?" Yu Song-hwan's expression was cold. "Well, there's no hurry. We're going to eat at Mom's place anyway. It's fine even if we don't call," Tang Bao said with a smile. There was a hidden meaning in her words. If something happened at Yu Song-hwan's place, Di Haotian's first suspect would be her. Yu Song-hwan looked as if he didn't know, and his expression was indifferent. Tang Bao didn't feel uneasy when she said that. She just didn't want to make it so obvious. When the car stopped, Tang Bao got out of the car and was stunned by the hospital in front of her. She stood there without moving, and there was a puzzled look on her face. "Why did you come to the hospital? Didn't you say you were going to the bungalow?" Tang Bao asked. "Didn't you want to do a prenatal checkup?" "I want to know if my grandson is doing well in your womb. If you want to know, I can show you the information from the prenatal checkup a while ago. Moreover, this hospital wasn't the hospital where she had been doing prenatal checkup. How could she? I want to see it for myself. Do you have a problem with that?" Yu Song-hwan asked in a dignified manner. "It's not that I have a problem with it, but it's not necessary. Even if you want to see the child's condition, you can go for the next prenatal checkup. The doctor said that too many prenatal checkups will affect the child. It's just one more prenatal checkup. What can it do?" Yu Song-hwan looked at her suspiciously. "Don't tell me you're feeling guilty and don't dare to go in with me?" "Why would I feel guilty?" Tang Bao asked in confusion. Yu Song-hwan went straight to the point. "I want to do a paternity test." What? Tang Bao didn't expect Yu Song-hwan to have such a purpose. "Why do you want me to do a paternity test? Don't tell me, don't you believe that the child in my womb is Di Haotian's?" "I'm just suspicious. I think you should have the obligation to dispel my doubts, Yu Song-hwan said matter-of-factly. Chapter 636. Yu Song-hwan must have been suspicious, that's why he did this. Mom, the child is Di Haotian's. Tang Bao didn't need to promise Yu Song-hwan something like this. However, she could only explain. I'm Di Haotian's wife. If it's not his child, whose child could it be? You're insulting me by doubting me. Insulting? Yu Song-hwan seemed to have heard something ridiculous. I don't think people who like to steal are afraid of being insulted. If you like to steal things, you like to steal people even more. Everyone knows about your relationship with Di Junbai. Do you think everyone is a fool? Otherwise, with Haotian's protection, you wouldn't even be able to enter the Di family's house. Mom, there's nothing between Di Junbai and I. Before Di Haotian lost his memory, everything was clear. Clear? I went to investigate. During the period when you might have been pregnant, you happened to not be in the castle and went back to the Tang family. Di Junbai went to look for you, right? Was that when you got pregnant? Haotian lost his memory and didn't want you to get pregnant, so you went to Di Junbai and then blamed Haotian. Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. I've been in the Di family for decades. There are plenty of women like you. If you admit that you betrayed Haotian, I'll let you go. You'd better stay far away from Haotian. If you don't admit it, when the DNA test results come out and prove that the child is unrelated to Haotian, you'll end up in a miserable state. Have you thought it through? I don't need to think about it. The child is Di Haotian's. Tang Bao felt that she couldn't clear her name even if she jumped into the Yellow River. Since you're so determined, why are you still afraid of a DNA test? Tang Bao was extremely helpless. She felt that she couldn't continue talking to Yu Song-hwan. I'm going to call Di Haotian. Even if we're going to do a paternity test, he needs to know. However, I believe that Di Haotian will not agree to such a ridiculous thing. Tang Bao turned around and left. Yu Song-hwan did not stop her and asked, if I tell Haotian that Di Junbai went to the Tang family to look for you, do you think he will believe you? Tang Bao stopped in his tracks. His back stiffened and he felt a chill run down his spine. Would Di Haotian believe her? Would Di Haotian, who had lost his memory, believe her? Not only was Tang Bao uncertain, but he also felt uneasy. How did Yu Song-hwan know that Di Junbai had been to her place? It was that maid. She was really unreliable. However, she couldn't be blamed. Yu Song-hwan wasn't someone to be trifled with. If she wanted to know something, she would try her best to pry open that person's mouth. Right now, it wasn't about her pursuing the maid who betrayed her, but how to deal with the current situation. I'm giving you a chance by saying nice things to you now. If you don't listen, I'll use force. Yu Song-hwan had just finished speaking. Just as Yu Song-hwan finished speaking, the accompanying bodyguards blocked Tang Bao's path. Tang Bao panicked and covered her stomach with her hand. She was forced to take 2 steps back. She couldn't fight against the strong bodyguards, so she turned around and begged Yu Song-hwan, Mom, if we do a paternity test, even if it proves my innocence, what will the children think when they grow up and know that you've suspected them? Don't worry. If there are no problems with the paternity test today, I can shut anyone's mouth. They won't joke around with their lives. Yu Song-hwan's words were so cold-blooded, but Tang Bao couldn't back down and said, Mom, have you forgotten how I lost my first child? Don't tell me you want to make the same mistake again? Yu Song-hwan's identity was on the same level as the Empress Dowager. How could her face not change when she was threatened by Tang Bao? Are you threatening me? I'm telling the truth. Have you thought about it? If Di Haotian recovers his memory one day and you hurt his child, will he forgive you in this life? Do you know why Di Haotian came to me and why he didn't come back for the new year with me? He hates you for drugging me and taking his first child away from him. Do you know? Di Haotian cares a lot about that child. That was his first child, but it was killed by its own mother. If it weren't for the fact that he lost his memory, He wouldn't have forgiven you. Yu Song-hwan was stunned by Tang Bao's words. Her stern expression softened a little. Of course, she remembered what she had done. She didn't mean to do it, but it killed her first grandson, Di Haotian's first son. It wasn't that she didn't know that Di Haotian didn't go back for the new year because he knew the truth. But if the child in her belly wasn't Di Haotian's, wouldn't the consequences be just as serious? Would Tang Bao's scheme succeed? Di Haotian had lost his memory, so she couldn't let her guard down. Yu Song-hwan came back to her senses and quickly settled the panic in her heart. Don't worry, I just want you to do a paternity test. I'll make an appointment with a top expert. It won't hurt the child. Tang Bao saw Yu Song-hwan hesitate for a moment and thought that he had convinced her. He didn't expect that he still wouldn't let her go. Do you want to walk in yourself, or do you want me to ask someone to force you in? If they do it, they won't hold back and hurt the child. Don't regret it, Yu Song-hwan said coldly. In her heart, she was already sure that the child in her belly wasn't Di Haotian's. She was still enduring and being courteous to Tang Bao only because she wanted a result. Tang Bao looked at the road not far away. There were cars and people coming and going, but no one she was familiar with came to save her. She waited expectantly. After she was forced to walk into the hospital, no one came to save her. How could Tang Bao not be hospitalized? If the child was hurt, she would regret it to death. Moreover, there was still some distance from the entrance of the hospital to the examination room. She could wait for Di Haotian to appear. It didn't matter if anyone appeared. She walked into the examination room, where the doctors and nurses were waiting. There was a bed in front of her and a machine beside it that needed to be used to extract liquid. It was so cold that it made Tang Bao feel cold all over. Tang Bao stood there motionless. She wanted to stall for time. Every second was an opportunity for her. Why aren't you lying down? What are you waiting for? Are you still waiting for someone to save you? Yu Song-hwan asked sternly. Tang Bao glanced at the female doctor's face and said to Yu Song-hwan, Mom, I can do it, but can you change the doctor? Yu Song-hwan thought that Tang Bao was going to play some tricks again. He didn't expect her to make such a request. Why do you want to change? She's too ugly. I'm afraid that she'll scare the child in my belly. You don't know, but every time I go to the hospital for a prenatal checkup, the doctor is very beautiful. She looks like a big star. Yu Song-hwan's face twitched. The doctor's face was even more beautiful. No one had ever made such a request. It was simply an insult to her, but she didn't dare to say anything. Chapter 637. Although she couldn't be compared to a big star, she still had good features. Tang Bao looked at the angry doctor and said in her heart, Sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I had no choice. Please forgive me. Mom, if you don't change it, I won't cooperate, Tang Bao said. Even if I change it, you still won't cooperate. Yu Song-hwan gave the nurses a look. The nurses immediately went forward and held Tang Bao on both sides and pressed her onto the bed. Ah! Let go of me! Let go! Tang Bao struggled, but she didn't dare to use too much strength. She still had to take care of the child in her stomach. Yu Song-hwan didn't care about this. She no longer believed that the child in her stomach was Di Haotian's. So, Tang Bao was finally pressed onto the bed and laid on it. Tang Bao looked at Yu Song-hwan in panic, and still didn't give up begging for mercy. Mom, you'll hurt the child like this. If the child is hurt, what's the use even if it's proven to be Di Haotian's child in the end? Yu Song-hwan didn't say anything, but the doctor said, Please don't worry. Extracting the amniotic fluid will definitely not hurt the child. Tang Bao still wanted to say something, but Yu Song-hwan said coldly, Do you want me to call Di Haotian now and ask him to force you to do the paternity test? He won't. Tang Bao shook her head helplessly. He won't? Yu Song-hwan sneered. If he knew that the child in your stomach was born from a date with Di Junbai at the Tang family's house, do you think he won't? Tang Bao's body froze and she didn't move. The nurses and doctors immediately took her blood pressure, heart rate, and disinfected her. All the preparations were in progress. Tang Bao was stunned. Yu Songhuan's words were no longer a threat because she had long lost confidence in Di Haotian. Before she lost her memory, she was still confident, but now, she had no confidence at all. She wondered if she could accept Yu Songhuan's coercion or Di Haotian's coercion for a paternity test. She knew very well that she would rather accept Yu Songhuan's oppression. So be it. She didn't do anything wrong to Di Haotian anyway. She knew better than anyone else who the father of the child was. If she didn't allow Yu Songhuan to do the DNA test this time, she would still try her best to make her compromise in the future. The process of extracting amniotic fluid was very short, and there was no pain or discomfort, but it made her collapse. Tears kept flowing down her cheeks. However, Yu Songhuan, who was supervising from the side, did not show any mercy. Until it was done. Tang Bao did not ask how Yu Songhuan managed to get a sample of Di Haotian's DNA. Since Yu Songhuan was willing to go through so much trouble to bring her over, she must have already prepared everything else. After taking the sample, there was nothing left for her to do. When they walked out of the hospital, Tang Bao asked with an indifferent expression, "Can you let me go home now? Didn't I say that I'll take you to the bungalow for dinner? I'll send you back to the castle after dinner." Tang Bao's eyes darkened. Yu Songhuan had a good plan. Who would notice if they went to the bungalow for dinner and did a paternity test on the way? Tang Bao did not say anything. She got into the car and went to the bungalow. Not long after she arrived at the bungalow, Di Haotian arrived. A tall and oppressive figure appeared in front of her. Tang Bao did not say a word about what had happened to her. She only hoped that after the results of the paternity test came out and Yu Songhuan was relieved, no one would mention this matter again. "Seriously, you're just bringing Tang Bao over for dinner. Why are you so nervous?" Yu Songhuan said in a joking tone. "I haven't eaten lunch yet. Let's eat together," Di Haotian said as if he had just come over to eat because he did not have anything to eat. "All right then. I've prepared a lot of dishes anyway," Yu Songhuan instructed Auntie Wang. "Let's eat." Yes. Auntie Wang went to the kitchen. Yu Songhuan also turned around and left. Di Haotian and Tang Bao were left staring at each other. Under that sharp gaze, Tang Bao turned his face away and looked elsewhere. Belle hurried to Lan Wanru's room. Lan Wanru was fiddling with the flowers and plants. "Miss, old madam really brought Tang Bao for a paternity test. It's strange that Tang Bao actually agreed," Belle said. "Even if she didn't agree, how could she go against Auntie? Miss, the paternity test has already been done. Why are you unhappy? When the time comes, as long as the paternity test proves that the child isn't the young master's, won't she be dead meat?" "What if it is?" Lan Wanru asked. This. Belle didn't know either. Lan Wanru stood up and took 2 steps. After pondering for a while, he said, "I'm just taking a gamble. If the child in Tang Bao's stomach is Brother Haotian's, then wouldn't my paternity test be done for nothing? It would be beneficial to Tang Bao instead." Although he said this, Lan Wanru was very clear in his heart. That child couldn't be anyone else's. It could only be Di Haotian's. Based on her understanding of Di Junbai's personality, he wouldn't do that kind of thing with Tang Bao. If he did, how could Di Junbai be so calm about Tang Bao? If that's the case, then old madam won't object to Tang Bao being by the young master's side. "That's right, and I don't have any chance at all," Lan Wanru said in a low voice. Belle's eyes darted around as if she had thought of something. She walked towards Lan Wanru and said in a low voice, "So, miss, we need to think of a way to look at the paternity test report. If it's real, then we'll change it. If it's fake, then we don't need to go through so much trouble. What do you think?" Lan Wanru turned around and looked at Belle as if her idea had brought him hope. "But who will do this kind of thing? Who will do this kind of thing for me?" "Miss, leave this kind of thing to me. I just need to bribe the people in the hospital and we'll know, right?" Then you have to be careful. Lan Wanru held her hand and said, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." After Belle left the room, Lan Wanru had a faint smile on his face. Even if Di Hautyen blamed her in the future, it had nothing to do with her. She didn't say or do anything. As for Belle, she would collect her corpse. Belle sneaked to the hospital. She found the paternity test center. She saw doctors and nurses going in and out. Then, when a nurse was alone, she pulled her aside. The nurse was shocked by her. "What are you doing? Who are you?" I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. It's like this. My miss came over to do a paternity test yesterday. I wonder when the results will be out?" "What's her name?" "Tang Bao." "So it's her." This nurse was the assistant of the expert. She was also present when the paternity test was done. Chapter 638. She wanted to do a paternity test? She must have done something shameful. Who would do such a thing for no reason? Hearing the nurse's words, Belle knew it was because she had a deep impression of Tang Bao. Instead of asking, she asked, "Did you do it for her?" "I'm just the doctor's assistant. The test was done by the specialist. You can ask the specialist if you want to know." The nurse turned to leave. "Wait." Belle stopped her. "You're the specialist's assistant. It shouldn't be a problem for you to see the paternity test report, right?" "The specialist won't let me see it." "Why do you ask?" "I just want to know the results of the report in advance. Plus, you're the specialist's assistant. It's easy for you to see it," Belle said with a smile. "Why do I need to see it in advance? When the results are out, the specialist will tell the family." "I know, but my daughter wants to know first. You know, she's still worried." Belle looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. The nurse immediately understood. "I'm sorry, I can't help you." "Don't worry. I won't let you help me for free." Belle took out a stack of money from her bag and stuffed it into the nurse's hand. The nurse wanted to protect her dignity, but after seeing Belle's generosity, she hesitated. Her boyfriend lost a lot of money gambling and was in debt. He wanted her to help him borrow money. She was worried that she couldn't do it. The money came to her door. There were plenty of things like this in the hospital. She didn't care if there was one more. "Okay. I'll tell you when the report is out." The nurse accepted the deal and took the money. "Okay. This is my phone number. Call it when you know." Belle took out a piece of paper with her phone number on it and gave it to the nurse. The nurse took it. "Don't worry. Since I took your money, I'll definitely tell you." "Thank you." Belle's phone rang that night. Lan Wanru was preparing to sleep in his room when Belle rushed in. Lan Wanru frowned unhappily. "Why are you so impatient?" "Miss, I have good news for you." "What good news?" Lan Wanru didn't know what good news could there be for him. "The paternity test report is out. The young master is not biologically related to the children in Tang Bao's womb." "What did you say?" Lan Wanru asked in disbelief. "I heard it clearly. That's what the assistant professor told me. If the child isn't young Master D's, it means that Tang Bao is pregnant with someone else." Belle was very happy for Lan Wanru. However, Lan Wanru didn't have much of a reaction. In fact, she was already unable to recover from this result. The child is not Di Hautyen? In other words, did Tang Bao really sleep with someone else and want to blame the baby on Di Hautyen? She thought that the child in Tang Bao's stomach must be Di Hautyen's. She didn't expect such a reversal. She didn't even have to do anything. "Miss, this is great." After the old madam finds out the truth, Tang Bao can just wait for death. Lan Wanru's eyes were filled with sarcasm. She was also looking forward to it. Tang Bao was really more courageous than she had imagined. He used someone else's child to strengthen his position in the Di family. Although this move was dangerous, the chances of success were high. If she hadn't used this move, who would have tested the child in Tang Bao's womb? After all, Di Hautyen didn't suspect anything. However, whose child was that? Di Junbai's? The only suspicious man who was close to Tang Bao was Di Junbai. Then, miss, what do we need to do next? Belle asked. Lan Wanru glanced at her and said, from now on, we don't need to do anything. The paternity test report was sent directly to the bungalow by the expert. Only Auntie Wang saw it. When the expert handed the report over, he didn't say anything. There was no need to say anything. They only needed to do as they were told. As for the other things, if they were asked, they would answer. If they didn't, they would pretend to be mute. If possible, they didn't want to see anything that they shouldn't see. After the expert left, Auntie Wang took the report and went to look for Yu Songhuan. Yu Songhuan was sitting in the living room and waiting with a string of prayer beads in his hand. Old madam, I've brought the report, Auntie Wang said softly. In fact, she was also very nervous. She was afraid that there would be an accident. It would be best if nothing happened. When she saw Yu Songhuan open his eyes, she handed the report over. Yu Songhuan looked at the carefully folded report and hid his nervousness. She still hoped that the child was her biological grandson. With great difficulty, she suppressed her unstable emotions and opened the list. When she saw the words at the bottom right corner, her face instantly turned pale. Her hand trembled, and the list floated down and landed right next to Wang Sa's feet. Auntie Wang also had good eyesight. She immediately saw the words clearly. She was also shocked. When she looked at Yu Songhuan again, he directly smashed the prayer beads in his hand. The beads splattered everywhere. Old madam, calm down. Take care of your health. Auntie Wang hurriedly comforted her. Take care of my health? Sooner or later, my life will be ruined by her hands. She's really bold. I really want to take her life right now. Yu Songhuan had never been so angry, even from the first day he entered the Di family. And ever since Tang Bao married Di Haotian, there wasn't a day that she wasn't angry. And this time, Tang Bao's behavior was even more unbearable. If you're unhappy, just think of a way to make her disappear. Don't hurt yourself, Auntie Wang advised. I'm not doing it for myself. Haotian. Why can't Haotian see through a woman like this? Must he hurt her until she's black and blue before he's willing to let go? Yu Songhuan's eyes were filled with tears. If I tell him that the child in Tang Bao's stomach isn't his, how angry will he be? He's such a strong person, but he was betrayed by Tang Bao. How can he accept it? This was something that even a man from a normal family wouldn't be able to accept, let alone the high and mighty Di Haotian. His dignity and nobility would all be damaged. If old madam is worried about this, why don't you send Tang Bao away in private? Seeing this kind of paternity test is equivalent to exposing her true colors. Wouldn't she be in a hurry to escape? After she escapes, although young Master Di will be anxious, at least he won't be unable to restrain his anger when he finds out that the child isn't his. This time, even if I have to sacrifice 3 lives, I definitely won't let her off, Yu Songhuan said with a vicious gaze. Tang Bao didn't have to worry about the paternity test at all. After she was done, she stayed in the castle obediently. Chapter 639. Then, Yu Songhuan wouldn't have to keep thinking about how to deal with her. Tang Bao kept looking at the time on her phone. It was Sunday today, and Wan Malay had promised to visit her. It was about time. Just as she was about to call Wan Malay's figure jumped into the hall. Tang Bao saw her and said, "Did you come back from abroad? Why are you taking so long? It's good enough that I came to visit you, but you still have to be so picky." Wan Malay rolled her eyes, then looked at her big belly and touched it gently. "Oh my God, I haven't seen you for a while, and your belly has grown so much. Is it hard to carry such a big belly?" "Of course it's hard, it's very hard." Tang Bao could not help but complain to her. "How long until you give birth?" "Less than 3 months. There's still a long time. I can't go anywhere in the castle, and I'm bored to death. I don't even know what the company is like now." "Don't worry about that, The company is doing better than before, and the percentage points are constantly rising, Juan Malay said with a smile. Don't the people in the company think that I haven't been to the company for so long? There are rumors, right? Tell me about it. Do you really want to hear it? Of course, tell me. Tang Bao was very curious. They said that you sold the company to T, and she ran away with the money. Tang Bao was stunned and asked, were they very happy when they said that? That's right. Tang Bao was speechless. As an employee of her small company, it was definitely not as valuable as being an employee under T's name. It would be strange if they weren't happy. I say, don't keep holding your phone. Aren't you afraid of radiation? Juan Malay asked. Tang Bao looked at the phone in her hand and said, it's okay. There's no scientific basis to say that the radiation from the TV and cell phones will affect the fetus. How do you know? The doctor said so. Tang Bao looked at the way Wan Mi stared at her. Thinking of something, he smiled mysteriously and took her hand. Let's go out for a walk. When I saw your smile, I knew it wasn't a good thing. Don't accuse me wrongly. It's a good thing that you're in trouble. When they were outside, Tang Bao looked around but did not see He Ju. However, He Ju had always been elusive. Unless he called out, tell me, what's your good deed? He Ju, of course. Tang Bao smiled slyly. You? Are you kidding me? I don't believe that you didn't want to meet He Ju or something when you came here. Tang Bao saw through her expression. Juan Malay's face turned red, but he refused to admit it. I just didn't think about it. I am here to see you. He Ju. He Ju. He Ju. Tang Bao shouted. Hey, what are you doing? Juan Malay looked around anxiously, afraid that He Ju would really come out. However, Tang Bao was not disappointed. He Ju appeared and walked over. Tang Bao smiled. He Ju, Malay has something to say to you. I'll give you a chance to be alone with each other. Do you want it? Yes. He Ju was very honest. Juan Malay was speechless. Also, when did she say that she had something to say to He Ju? Nonsense. Friends are meant to be tricked, right? Then you guys have a good chat. I'm going back to sleep first. Otherwise, Di Haotian will definitely scare me with his eyes if he knows that I didn't sleep. Tang Bao patted his mouth and yawned as he walked back. He completely ignored Juan Malay's stare. In fact, although she looked calm on the surface, her heart was in a mess. When she reached the living room, she found a floor-to-ceiling window and hid in front of a vase that was as tall as her. She looked out and wanted to see how Juan Malay and He Ju were dating. She felt that He Ju was definitely not as good as Di Haotian when it came to dating. Di Haotian wanted something very purposeful. It was definitely an overwhelming plunder, whether you were willing or not. He Ju, on the other hand, was like an icicle. His face was cold and expressionless. He was not afraid of freezing a girl. Tang Bao realized that Juan Malay liked this kind of person. In the past, Gu Linshan was gloomy. Now, He Ju was cold. Both of them had this characteristic. Why is it blocked by a tree? How annoying. Tang Bao muttered. She looked left and right, but she could not see He Ju and Juan Malay. Then, she thought that if she could not see them here, she could go upstairs to take a look. As the saying goes, the higher one stands, the farther one can see. Just as she was about to go upstairs, a low voice came from behind her. Who allowed you to go upstairs alone? Tang Bao was stunned. She turned around and saw Di Haotian standing behind her. She pouted and said, although I'm pregnant, I'll be fine going upstairs. Don't worry, I care about the child as much as you do. After saying that, Tang Bao held the railing with one hand and prepared to go upstairs. However, before she could step on the stairs, her body became light and she was carried up in a princess carry. Ah! Tang Bao was shocked. Her two small hands immediately climbed onto Di Haotian's broad shoulders in a panic. She looked at Di Haotian's cold and sharp face and said unhappily, "What are you doing?" "I said that I'll walk by myself." You're going to take responsibility if you hurt my son? Tang Bao was unhappy. How do you know it's a son? Maybe it's a daughter. No, Di Haotian, do you value boys over girls? Di Haotian ignored her unreasonable tantrum and carried her upstairs. He held her very firmly, and even his expression did not change. Tang Bao originally wanted to say that she was pregnant with twins and would be much heavier than before, so it would be better to put her down. However, when she thought about how Di Haotian could lift a heavy sofa with one hand in the past, she thought that he was using two hands now. Besides, even if she was pregnant with twins, she was still much lighter than the sofa. Tang Bao was held firmly in his arms. She could clearly feel the strong muscles in his arms. She did not have to worry about falling down at all. However, she was unwilling to put down her hands on his broad shoulders. She was reluctant to part with the touch. The slight sway made her thoughts drift to the past. At that time, she was also pregnant. Di Haotian carried her up and down the stairs personally, and he did not get tired of it. Now, although it was the first time he carried her upstairs after she was pregnant, Tang Bao's heart was still filled with emotions. Di Haotian, do you like girls or boys? Tang Bao wanted to know what Di Haotian thought after he lost his memory. Could it be that the answer he gave was the truth before he lost his memory? Di Haotian's dark eyes rippled slightly, and he said in a flash, "Whatever." "Whatever? How can you be so casual about this kind of thing?" Tang Bao was not very satisfied with this answer. "Then do you want me to value boys over girls? Or do you want me to value girls over boys?" Di Haotian lowered his eyebrows and his gaze fell on the fair little face in his arms. Chapter 640. There was a happy smile on Tang Bao's face. "Just like you, as long as the child in my belly is mine." Di Haotian's sharp gaze swept over her. "Do you have a problem with that?" "What problem? You're too rude." Tang Bao's face was red. Di Haotian did not speak. He stared at Tang Bao's red face. His dark eyes were deep and he was slightly distracted. Along the way, Tang Bao was carried back to the room. After her feet landed on the ground, she did not know what she had returned to the room for. Her mind was still replaying the interaction between her and Di Haotian just now. At this moment, she stood there in a complete daze, like an elk lost in the forest. "I heard that pregnant women's IQ will drop. If your IQ drops again, you'll be stupid." Di Haotian said this, but his eyes were fixed on her. It was as if he was very interested in a silly woman. However, Tang Bao was very unhappy when she heard this. "What do you mean? How am I stupid? Even if I'm pregnant, I'm still a clever little girl." She did not speak with confidence, and her eyes were flickering. That was because Di Haotian, who was standing in front of her, had a strong aura that she could not bear. Just as she finished speaking to Di Haotian, she saw Di Haotian's figure walking towards her. Tang Bao's little heart kept beating wildly. What are you doing? I'm telling you, don't mess around. The doctor said that I'm in an unstable period now, and I can't be provoked." "What did I do to provoke you?" Di Haotian asked. His voice was very low, and there was a sexy hoarseness to it. Tang Bao felt that the temperature of her whole face was rising. When she wanted to retreat, her waist was held. The pregnant waist was not as thick as before. Being hugged so intimately, Tang Bao felt a little uncomfortable. However, when Di Haotian's face pressed against hers, her body became even hotter. Before Di Haotian could say his name, Tang Bao's mouth was covered. Di. Tang Bao's mind was instantly muddled, and he could not remember why he had come upstairs. Not to mention being kissed by Di Haotian in the end. Later, when Tang Bao came down from upstairs, Wan Malay had already left. Only then did she remember what she was doing upstairs. Seriously. She had been intimate with Di Haotian countless times. Why couldn't she face it with a normal heart? Or was it because Di Haotian was like a beast when he kissed her? The next day Di Haotian went to tea. Tang Bao was alone in the baby's room. She had already installed the 2 small wooden horses and placed them on the decorative table. When she pressed her finger gently on them, the small wooden horses would sway back and forth. They would continue to sway unless she stopped them with her hand. There was a knock on the door. Zhang Li walked in. "Young madam, old madam is here." Tang Bao turned around and saw Yu Songhuan walking in. She thought he would ask her to go downstairs. She did not expect him to come to the baby's room in person. "Mom." This was the first time she saw Yu Songhuan after the paternity test. Tang Bao could not help but pay more attention to Yu Songhuan's expression. However, she could not tell whether he was happy or angry. Yu Songhuan did not respond to her. He just looked around the baby's room. Then, he looked at Tang Bao with little interest and asked, "Which room are you sleeping in?" "In the master bedroom." "I remember that you used to sleep in a room alone." "Yes." Tang Bao did not know why Yu Songhuan asked this. "Take me there to have a look." Tang Bao was puzzled by Yu Songhuan's behavior. However, since she wanted to see the room, it was not appropriate for her to stop her. So, she took her there. After entering the room, Yu Songhuan said, "Close the door." Tang Bao thought to herself, "Does he have something to say?" So, she closed the door. She kept Zhang Li and the other maids outside the door. After closing the door, Tang Bao turned around and saw Yu Songhuan throw a document on the coffee table. Bam! His attitude was very fierce. Tang Bao walked over and saw the words, "Paternity Test Report," written on it. Was the result out? Wasn't that a good thing? But that was not right. Since the results were out, why was Yu Songhuan's expression and attitude so bad? Logically speaking, after seeing the results, Yu Songhuan would treat her very well. Could it be Tang Bao thought of something that was impossible? Her face turned slightly pale, and she froze there without saying a word. After a long while, she held her waist and picked up the test report on the coffee table. She calmed down a few times before opening it. When she saw the final result written in the bottom right corner, Tang Bao's face turned pale and her breathing became extremely unstable. This is impossible." Yu Songhuan followed her coldly. "Impossible? Can't you see the words in black and white? Do you want me to repeat them? But this is impossible. The child in my stomach is Di Haotian's." How could she not know whether the child was Di Haotian's? From the beginning to the end, she only had Di Haotian. She would never do that kind of thing. How could the hospital's test results be fake? Yu Songhuan was very distressed. "I hope that the child in my stomach is Haotian's more than you. At least I won't let him know what a disgusting woman he married." Tang Bao looked at Yu Songhuan's face with disgust and contempt and then looked at the test report in her hand. There was nothing wrong with her eyes, but she felt like everything was an illusion. She closed her eyes and tried to calm herself down. But no matter how calm she was, the words that came out were trembling. "I don't believe this report. The hospital must have made a mistake. It's impossible. Then you think that I don't want my biological grandson?" Tang Bao couldn't say a single word. Yu Songhuan was right. She would not like her, but she would definitely like her biological grandson. Just like in the beginning, Yu Songhuan's attitude changed because of her pregnancy. If she really did not like him, she would not have revealed her true colors until now. However, how could she admit that the paternity test report was real? How could she accept that there was nothing wrong with the hospital's test? What on earth was going on? "Don't pretend to be innocent in front of me. I bypassed Haotian and came directly to you because I didn't want Haotian to suffer such a blow. I'll only give you 3 days. After 3 days, you will immediately disappear from Haotian's side and pretend that you don't exist. Otherwise, don't blame me for showing this report to Haotian." After Yu Songhuan finished speaking, he snatched the test report from Tang Bao's hand and put it into his briefcase. Then, he turned and left the room. Tang Bao stood there as if she was frozen. She was thinking about what was going on with that report. She would never believe that it was her report that the child was Di Haotian's. And Yu Songhuan would not let her leave without his biological grandson. Chapter 641. After Yu Songhuan left, Zhang Li hurriedly ran in to check on Tang Bao's condition. She found that Tang Bao's expression was not right, so she hurriedly asked, "Young madam, are you okay?" Tang Bao came back to her senses in a daze. She looked at Zhang Li's anxious face and shook her head dully. "I'm fine." But why did Zhang Li look so different? "Even if you saw something, don't tell Di Haotian. If the old madam bullied you, don't tell the young master either? If the old madam bullied you, she bullied the little masters in her stomach. She bullied 3 people at once. The young master will definitely help you," Zhang Li said seriously. "Who said she bullied me? Do I look like I bullied her? But in the past, the old madam also bullied you, but you didn't say anything, causing the young master to misunderstand you and suffer so much. I know. I know you're worried about me, worried that things will be the same as before, but I promise you that I'll be fine, and the children will be fine." Really? Zhang Li was really worried. In the past, the children were less than 3 months old, but now the children should be born in less than 3 months. Wasn't that more dangerous? "I've already promised you, are you still worried?" Zhang Li's sincerity made Tang Bao feel warm and sad. "Go and get me some food. I'm hungry." "Okay, I'll go now." Hearing Tang Bao's words, Zhang Li's heart calmed down a little. Perhaps she was thinking too much. After all, the children were already so old. She had always been in charge of Tang Bao's diet, so there definitely wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, if there was a problem with the children, how could the young master not know when he brought them for a prenatal checkup? Zhang Li left the room. Tang Bao sat down on the sofa. She was certain that there was something wrong with the report. Most importantly, if Yu Songhuan showed it to Di Haotian, would Di Haotian believe her? Would he be furious the moment he saw the results of the paternity test? Would he lose his mind and directly harm her and the child? After seeing such a result, would Di Haotian still have the rationality to do another paternity test? Tang Bao was very careful. She did not dare to take any chances, because her chances of winning were so small. Could it be that she wanted Di Haotian to believe in her instead of the scientific evidence? Wasn't detailed data more reliable than her words? She only had 3 days. What should she do? How could he survive this crisis? Otherwise, she could tell Di Haotian that she wanted to do a DNA test again. As long as the results were different from Yu Songhuan's, she would be safe. But what if it was still the same? Although Tang Bao did not know why the results were like this, the hidden schemes were the most dangerous. Then, who on earth wanted to frame her like this? Was it Lan Wanru? Di Lingyue? She could only think of these 2 people. He was always harboring ulterior motives. In the side hall, Di Lingyue asked in disbelief, "Are you sure?" Lan Wanru nodded. "I'm sure. The child in Tang Bao's belly is indeed not Brother Haotian's. The paternity test was done by the expert himself. Auntie has always been very careful. There can't be any mistakes." "This is great. I was worried that Di Haotian would have an heir. Now, I'm afraid he will be happy for nothing. I was still thinking of ways to get rid of the child in Tang Bao's belly. Now that I don't need it, I'll keep it. When the child is born, I really want to see Di Haotian's face." So, fate is still on Uncle's side. Lan Wanru said something that made Di Lingyue feel comfortable. Di Lingyue turned around and said with a relaxed and happy smile, "It would be best if you marry Di Haotian." Lan Wanru looked slightly depressed. "This is my life's wish." "Then work hard for your wish. I believe you have the ability." After dinner, Di Lingyue called Di Junbai into the study. The moment he entered, Di Lingyue looked at Di Junbai with a strange gaze. It was as if he wanted to see through Di Junbai's heart. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Di Junbai asked calmly. "Don't you know something? The paternity test was done for the child in Tang Bao's belly." "I don't know. Why did they do a paternity test? Did my brother ask them to do it? Di Junbai asked in confusion. No. Yu Sanghuan avoided Di Haotian and forced Tang Bao to do it. Is there a problem? That's what I find strange. If the child in Tang Bao's belly isn't Di Haotian's, then whose child could it be? Di Lingyue looked at Di Junbai with a sharp gaze and asked the question in his heart. Is it yours? Di Junbai looked up and looked at Di Lingyue. Why do you think so? If the child in Tang Bao isn't Di Haotian, then it's yours. It's not mine. Di Lingyue believed that Di Junbai wouldn't lie to him. Most importantly, he wasn't nervous at all when he heard what he said. However, if it wasn't Di Haotian or Di Junbai, then who else could it be? Could it be he Jews? A cold light flashed across Di Junbai's eyes, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. He said, Is that important? How is it not important? Without He Ju by Di Haotian's side, it's equivalent to losing his right-hand man. The threat to us will be much smaller. There's no hurry. Di Junbai's expression was indifferent, as if he had just said it casually. Di Lingyue thought that Di Junbai could give him an idea, so he asked thoughtfully, Do you have an idea? Di Junbai didn't answer his question. Instead, he asked something else. The child in Tang Bao's belly isn't my brother's. I'm sure my brother doesn't know about it. My whole family knows about this, but Di Haotian probably doesn't know about it. I don't plan to tell him either. Anyway, it'll be more interesting after the child is born. Di Lingyue had a vicious smile on his face. On the contrary, Di Junbai didn't have any expression. It was just that his gaze was slightly heavy, hiding his emotions. Tang Bao sat on the sofa, holding Sun Tzu's The Art of War in her hands. When Di Haotian came in, she was already rubbing her eyes. While Tang Bao was still rubbing her eyes, the book in her hands was taken away. You don't have time to read? Di Haotian's gaze was deep and cold. In any case, he didn't have a pleasant expression. The more I read, the better it is. That's why I forgot about the time. Anyway, this is better than watching TV, right? Tang Bao raised her small face and smiled, looking like an innocent young girl. Looks like I'm not allowed to watch TV. I have to put away the book too. Di Haotian took the book and turned to go to the bedroom. Wait a moment, Di Haotian. Tang Bao called out to him. Di Haotian turned around and saw Tang Bao reaching out a hand and looking at Di Haotian with her eyes. Her meaning was obvious. You have to help me up. I can't get up. Chapter 642. Only then was Tang Bao able to stand up. Even if she stood up, she still had to look up at the tall Di Haotian. Tang Bao looked at Di Haotian's handsome face. Every line of his face was perfect, but it did not lose its sexiness and dominance. At this moment, his expression was cold. A sweet smile appeared on Tang Bao's face. She reached out and hooked her arms around Di Haotian's neck. Then, she kissed his cold lips. His thin lips were no longer pursed and softened. Di Haotian stared at her with his dark eyes. His voice was low and hoarse. Are you seducing me? No, I just want to give you some benefits, Tang Bao said with a smile. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? You kiss me every time, and you don't even greet me. After all, I learned it from you. Give me more benefits like this in the future, Di Haotian demanded. Okay, Tang Bao said and buried her head in Di Haotian's chest. Di Haotian narrowed his eyes. Her head was buried in his chest. Tang Bao closed her eyes. She could not bear to part with Di Haotian. However, if she could not bear to part with him, their child would be hurt in the end. She knew that it was not Di Haotian's intention to hurt the child. However, now that he had lost his memory, he did not know how to control his actions. In the past, Tang Bao knew that Di Haotian had lost his memory because he had no choice. Therefore, even if she was hurt again and again, she would never leave him. But now, she really wanted to tell Di Haotian that she could not hold on any longer. Mom came over today? You already know the answer. Tang Bao raised her head and looked at the strong chin in front of her. She really wanted to bite it. What did she say? Di Haotian lowered his gaze and looked at her. He didn't say anything. Tang Bao curled her lips into a smile. Her eyes were filled with brilliance and brilliance. What do you want her to say? Wasn't she here to see her grandson? After a while, he left. Tang Bao still did not say anything to Di Haotian. Maybe he felt something or maybe he felt nothing. In short, she no longer had the confidence to say anything to Di Haotian. He didn't even dare to mention the paternity test. All she wanted now was to protect her child. As for Di Haotian, she was only wary and wary of him. 3 days were like 3 seconds to the Tang Bao. It would pass by very quickly. However, her thoughts were in a mess. She had to face all the solutions and situations alone. She did not dare to tell anyone, not even Juan Malay. Now that it was so unsafe and there were still 3 months to give birth to the child, would there be an accident? 3 months was a long time for her. She did not know when danger would befall her. Tang Bao thought that she could escape from Di Haotian and hide for 3 months. As long as she could hide for 3 months and give birth to the child safely, she would not be afraid of anything. However, Di Haotian was very powerful. How could she hide from his search? If she was caught and found out about the paternity test, would he think that she ran away because she had a guilty conscience? Not to mention Di Haotian, even Tang Bao herself knew what was going on. However, it was impossible for her to sit still and wait for death. What if she succeeded? Therefore, she had to plan well. First of all, if she wanted to escape, she had to have money. Cash. Because if she used a card to withdraw the money, Di Haotian would be able to lock onto her location in a second. She could not ask someone to withdraw the money for her because Di Haotian would be able to find out who had withdrawn the money for her. Wouldn't she be harming others then? She could not withdraw the money like this. Then, how should she withdraw it when she was lying on the bed at night? Tang Bao lay flat and turned to look at Di Haotian. She wanted to turn over, but she could not. Di Haotian opened his eyes. His dark eyes were frightening. He used a little force and turned her over. Di Haotian, can you give me some money? Tang Bao asked as she snuggled up to him. She noticed that Di Haotian was staring at her without saying a word and quickly explained, Malay's birthday is coming up soon. I want to give her a mysterious gift. But after thinking about it, I think cash is the best. Di Haotian closed his eyes. How much? Tens of thousands. I'll ask someone to transfer the money to her. No. If I can transfer the money, I can do it myself. I want to give her the cash directly and give her an unexpected surprise. Di Haotian, how about it? You give me tens of thousands in cash, and I'll give her a red packet after a while. If you don't want to, it's okay. I'll go out and withdraw the money myself. I have money anyway. I don't need to ask you for it, Tang Bao said seriously. Di Haotian's face was a little dark. He did not say anything. Di Haotian, can you do it? Tang Bao pulled his arm. I said, I'll go out and get it myself. Sleep. Tang Bao bit her lip and glared at him. Stingy. Di Haotian. Tang Bao wanted to turn over and sleep with her but facing him. She wanted to turn around in a fit of pique, but found that she could not. She had no choice but to put the back of her hand on her face and cover her eyes in a fit of pique. The next day, Tang Bao was sitting in the living room, eating fruit and reading Sun Tzu's Art of War. A silver box landed beside her, causing her to be stunned for a moment. Her chewing stopped in place. She looked up and saw Di Haotian in front of her. What's this? Tang Bao asked, puzzled. With a click, the silver box opened. Tang Bao was stunned by the neat stack of money inside. She thought of something and asked, Is this the cash you want to give me? I don't want so much. Tens of thousands will do. When the time came, she would take the box and run away. Wouldn't that be too much of a rumor? Those who did not know would think that she had just made a deal with a triad. If Di Haotian knew what she was thinking, would he strangle her to death? Don't tell me that you don't even have pocket money as my woman. I only need tens of thousands of dollars for running away. When the money inside is used up, I'll put more money in. You can treat it as your treasure bowl. I only need tens of thousands of dollars for running away. You can ask me for anything in terms of money. I really only need tens of thousands of dollars for running away. After Di Haotian turned and left, Tang Bao reached out and rummaged through the stacks of money in the box. There were about a few $1,000,000. When the time came, she would take tens of thousands of dollars from the bottom and replace it with something else. Di Haotian would not notice. When they were sleeping at night, Di Haotian, I want to go to the company tomorrow. It won't close down. Of course I know it won't close down. I'm preparing to run away. Tang Bao took the initiative to approach Di Haotian. Chapter 643. However, she felt that she must have unconsciously sought a sense of security after she fell asleep. That was why she was like this. Di Haotian saw that she was pregnant and pitied her, so he did not push her away. Now that she was close to him awake, Di Haotian should not refuse. Tang Bao was almost pressed against Di Haotian's arm before saying, I just want to see the company. Can you promise me? No. What does it matter? I'll be very careful. There's no room for discussion. Di Haotian, shut up. I won't shut up. Di Haotian. I'll just go once. After that, I'll obediently stay in the castle and wait for the child to be born. Tang Bao was still arguing for herself when her mouth was suddenly covered by his hands. She wanted to struggle, but she could not break free from Di Haotian. Her entire body was pressed down by him. Even if that was not the case, it was especially difficult for her to move with such a big belly. When Di Haotian had enough, she was so close to death that she could not speak. She did not dare to say anything else, afraid that Di Haotian would press her down again and she would really die. Even though she said that, when Di Haotian was not around the next day, Tang Bao still wanted to go to the gate. As expected, she was stopped by someone as soon as she reached the gate. Tang Bao did not look unhappy. To be honest, ever since she was pregnant, she had never gone out except for the prenatal checkup and the last time when Yu Songhuan took her for a paternity test. On one hand, she did not really want to go out. On the other hand, Di Haotian did not let her go out. Actually, she did not really want to go out at the moment. Last night, when she mentioned it to Di Haotian and today, she was just putting on an act. Today was not the day she really wanted to leave the castle. Young madam, you can't go out. If young master finds out, he'll be angry, Zhang Li advised. Why can't he let me go out? I'm going to the company, not anywhere else. But it's dangerous for you to go out with such a big belly. I'll be careful. But there's always a chance. Even if young Master Di doesn't agree, I don't dare to let young madam out of the castle. Zhang Li didn't know why Tang Bao suddenly wanted to go out. He had already endured 7 months, so what was another 2 or 3 months to go? Tang Bao pretended to be angry, turned around, left the door, and went straight back to his room. When Di Haotian returned in the afternoon, Zhang Li immediately went forward and said, Young master, young madam is in a bad mood. It was best to comfort her. These were Zhang Li's heartfelt words. Di Haotian's black eyes moved slightly, his face stern. Young madam wanted to go out, but we didn't let her. Zhang Li explained the reason why Tang Bao was angry. She didn't even have dessert in the afternoon. Tang Bao was sitting on the sofa next to the floor-to-ceiling window in the living room. He was holding a book in his hand, but his eyes were fixed outside the window. Obviously, he was in low spirit. After Di Haotian entered, she didn't move and continued to look out of the window. Di Haotian walked over. His tall figure shrouded her, and his aura was oppressive. You want to go out? Tang Bao turned his face and looked up at Di Haotian aggrievedly. The doctor said that a pregnant woman's mood is very important. If she's in a bad mood, it's very easy for her to have prenatal depression. He really couldn't tell that she was in a bad mood. He only saw that she was playing tricks on him. However, Di Haotian wasn't angry. Instead, he felt that it was cute. He felt that he must have been possessed. "I'll take you out tonight." Di Haotian turned around and took off his coat. "Ah? Tonight?" Tang Bao asked in surprise. She was so excited that she wanted to get up, but she couldn't because of her big belly. She tried a few times, but to no avail. Just as she gave up, a force pulled her up. It was as if an endless amount of inner strength was injected into her body, and her body became lighter. When she saw that it was Di Haotian who pulled her up, she smiled. "Di Haotian, are you talking about tonight? The company has already gotten off work, right? Do you want people to see you like this?" Tang Bao thought to herself. Not only did she not want to, she also didn't want to go to the company now. She was just saying it. There was no need to take it seriously. She didn't expect Di Haotian to agree so readily. Di Haotian didn't say anything else and turned to enter the cloakroom. Tang Bao followed him into the cloakroom. When she saw Di Haotian taking off his clothes and was about to reveal his muscular body, she immediately retreated from the cloakroom. Not long after, Di Haotian walked out in only a bathrobe and entered the bathroom. Tang Bao raised her face normally. Di Haotian was going out after taking a shower and changing his clothes? Should she also change her clothes? Tang Bao entered the cloakroom. Looking at her maternity clothes, she couldn't help but sigh. No matter how beautiful the maternity clothes were, they were still maternity clothes. She definitely couldn't wear those beautiful dresses with a slim waist. She didn't need to take a shower. She could just change her clothes. After hesitating for a long time, she finally chose a pink maternity dress. It was the kind of watery pink that looked very beautiful. She had just taken off her home clothes. Before she could put on the dress, Di Haotian, who had just taken a shower, came in. Tang Bao was so shocked that the dress in her hand fell to the ground. Oh no! She couldn't bend down at all. She couldn't pick it up. At this time, she couldn't care less about the dress on the ground. Tang Bao immediately turned around. The curves of her back were perfectly displayed. She didn't look fat because of her pregnancy. From her back, it looked like she wasn't pregnant. Her arms and legs were thin, and even the name that Di Haotian had carved on her back didn't change at all. Di Haotian's gaze fell on Tang Bao's body. He felt that, under his gaze, Tang Bao was slowly becoming shy at a speed visible to the naked eye. Her ears were tinged with a hint of pink, which was very similar to the watery pink dress that he picked up from the ground. It was beautiful and beautiful. Tang Bao had her back to him. She lowered her head and couldn't see the movements behind her. Because of the silence, she was very nervous. She was also shy. Her current figure wasn't good-looking. It was very strange to have a big belly. She subconsciously raised her gaze and saw the two figures in the mirror next to her. She realized that Di Haotian was holding her maternity dress in his hand and staring at her with an invasive gaze that was like a beast that wanted to bite her neck and drink her blood. "I thought that I would definitely have to change my clothes when I go out. Give it to me." Tang Bao reached out and grabbed the maternity dress in Di Haotian's hand. With her back facing Di Haotian, she began to quickly put it on. She couldn't hide her nervousness. After putting it on, she didn't look at Di Haotian. After all, Di Haotian was completely dressed at this moment. The scorching heat on his body was oppressive. If she didn't go out now, she would be roasted. After Tang Bao went out, Di Haotian lowered his head and looked down. He saw that his body was abnormally active. He hadn't done anything yet, but he had such a big reaction. This feeling of being controlled made his heart very irritated, and it also brought with it a wave of evil fire. Chapter 644. Tang Bao didn't even know what happened in between when she was pushed onto the bed by Di Haotian, with a punitive intimacy and biting. Tang Bao's breathing was rapid, intertwining with Di Haotian's heavy breathing. She couldn't even speak a word. Even her big belly was not spared. It made her want to crawl under the bed. When it was over, Tang Bao's clothes were a mess. They were dirty and wrinkled. There was no way to let them out. In the end, Tang Bao had to change out of her dress with a red face. She couldn't wear it anymore. When she left the castle, it was already dark. The banquet of the Chamber of Commerce was full of big shots from all walks of life. However, Di Haotian's appearance still caused quite a stir. This was because Zhou Jisen was usually the one who appeared at the tea. Now that Di Haotian personally appeared, how could it not cause a commotion? His appearance was already surprising enough, not to mention that he brought a woman with him. Especially a pregnant woman. Tang Bao thought, can I escape at this moment? Why didn't I go to my company, but to some banquet? It's really a surprise that young Master Di came to the banquet of the Chamber of Commerce. The entire venue is honored. The president of the Chamber of Commerce came forward and shook hands. Di Haotian reached out and shook hands with him. His aura was explosive. Tang Bao couldn't help but be attracted to him. This was the first time she saw Di Haotian's demeanor on such an occasion. She felt her little heart pounding. He was dressed in a well-ironed black suit. He was tall and stylish, but it couldn't suppress his cold and fierce aura of a king. This is... The president turned his attention. Di Haotian's gaze fell on Tang Bao's face, who was uneasy. Tang Bao thought to herself, can she disappear on the spot? Can she not speak? Obviously not. She didn't know what she was thinking. Perhaps it was because Di Haotian had never acknowledged her identity, or she was afraid that Di Haotian would say something that would make her feel depressed. She said before Di Haotian, I'm his sister. He's my brother. Ah. So it's Miss Lan, nice to meet you. The president's face was full of smiles. Tang Bao almost bit her tongue. If she had known, she would have let Di Haotian say it. Wasn't Di Haotian's sister just Lan Wanru? Although she was not his real sister, she was Di Junbai's sister. Di Junbai also called Di Haotian brother. Wasn't she his sister? The president didn't know what was going on, but after she said those words, he felt Di Haotian's aura blow like a cold wind, making people panic. The president was a person who was good at reading people's expressions. He knew that he must have said something wrong. Could this person not be Lan Wanru? He heard that Miss Lan's body was weak, but the girl in front of him had a rosy complexion and was full of vitality. She didn't look weak at all. Just as Di Haotian was at a loss for what to do, someone beside him handed him a glass of wine. The president immediately took it and personally handed it to Di Haotian. Di Haotian didn't move. This filled the entire banquet hall with tension. Just when the tension reached a certain level, Di Haotian raised his hand to take the wine and took a sip. Only then did the tension in his heart relax a little. Tang Bao, who was standing next to him, was also personally served a healthy fruit drink like a VIP. Tang Bao drank it silently. She thought that Di Haotian wouldn't mind others calling her Miss Lan. Because in Di Haotian's heart, Lan Wanru was always more important than her. If she wasn't pregnant, Di Haotian wouldn't have brought her to such a place. She came with Di Haotian, so her status was naturally noble. But it wasn't hard to imagine the various speculations of others. He brought a woman and a pregnant woman. This woman was Di Haotian's woman? This child was Di Haotian's child? But Di Haotian wasn't married? Why did he bring her out so brazenly? Fortunately, Tang Bao was always by Di Haotian's side, so the others didn't have a chance to ask her anything. Just as she was thinking about this, Di Haotian left her side. Tang Bao was about to call out to him, but she took back her words. What did Di Haotian mean? Was he going to leave her alone? Just as Tang Bao stood there alone and thought about how to deal with people who came to talk to her, she saw Di Haotian coming from afar with food in his hands. Until he was in front of her. Tang Bao saw the food and was stunned. You went to get food for me? What do you think? That was true. They hadn't eaten dinner yet. She had been following Di Haotian all this time and didn't go anywhere. Naturally, she hadn't eaten anything. However, since she didn't eat, Di Haotian naturally didn't eat anything either. She said, "Can you take me to the dining area? I think I can eat more." When they arrived at the dining area, the two of them sat down and ate facing each other. Tang Bao was really hungry, so she buried her head in the food. Di Haotian ate a little and drank a glass of wine in his hand. Not far away, two women looked at the dining area from time to time and gossiped softly. "Who is this woman? The young master's eyes have been staring at her. I even specially dressed up, but I didn't expect him to not look at me at all. It's not just you. Other than that woman, which woman did the young master look at? If he said it was his sister, would you believe it? Definitely not. When the president mentioned Miss Lon just now, the atmosphere was obviously wrong. So she's his lover? Really? I heard that the young master isn't a man who's obsessed with women. He wouldn't bring a lover to such an important occasion, right? And this lover is pregnant? The young master is indeed a mysterious man, and so are the women around him." Tang Bao ended with half a glass of juice. She looked at the food in front of Di Haotian that he hadn't eaten much and asked, "Is it not to your taste?" "Yes." Di Haotian responded faintly and looked away. Could he not say that he was watching Tang Bao eat and had no interest in the food in front of him? "Then I'll ask the kitchen to make some for you to eat when we go back." Tang Bao wasn't a selfish person. He couldn't fill his own stomach and ignore Di Haotian. After Tang Bao finished eating, Di Haotian left the venue with her. She was the first to leave. After getting into the car, Tang Bao reminded Di Haotian, "You brought me here. Maybe tomorrow everyone will know that you, the young master, brought a pregnant woman to a banquet." "No." Di Haotian's expression was indifferent. "Why? I wouldn't dare." Tang Bao was speechless. That was right. No one dared. Direct and violent. Unless it was Di Haotian's instructions. When they were about to reach the castle, Tang Bao asked, "Di Haotian, shall we get off here? It's good to take a walk." Di Haotian's expression didn't change. Tang Bao pulled Di Haotian's index finger and shook it slightly like a coquettish girl. "Let's walk. I ate too much." He watched. How could he let her eat too much? However, he still knocked on the car door. The car stopped on the road. There was no need to stop. Chapter 645. On the spacious asphalt road, there were street lamps on the side of the road, illuminating the shadows of the trees. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and the stars were so clear. The wind blew on their faces, and it was very cool. Tang Bao looked away from the sky and looked at Di Haotian, asking, "Is it comfortable to walk like this?" Di Haotian did not say anything. Tang Bao looked at Di Haotian's large hand beside him and imagined the feeling of being tightly wrapped. With this thought, she reached out her small hand and took the initiative to put it into his large hand. Di Haotian's eyes narrowed slightly as he squeezed her hand. Tang Bao had a smile on her face, but her heart was bitter. "Di Haotian, if you knew that I was going to leave you, would you still treat me like this? I don't want to leave you, but I don't know if you will believe me and that the paternity test is real. If you don't believe it, then won't I and the child in my belly be in danger?" Just by holding Tang Bao's hand, Di Haotian seemed to feel the change in Tang Bao's mood. He turned his face and looked down at Tang Bao, who had her head lowered and was thinking about something. Tang Bao seemed to sense it and raised her small face. When she met Di Haotian's unfathomable black eyes, she was stunned for a moment, then smiled. On the afternoon of the third day, Tang Bao's phone rang. "It was Yu Songhuan calling. Have you thought about it?" Tang Bao had the phone pressed to her ear and looked out of the French window in a daze. She said, "I want to do another paternity test. Are you trying to stall for time with me? Or do you think I'll give you another chance to secretly tamper with it?" "How can I, a pregnant woman, tamper with it?" "Don't try to be smart in front of me. It's useless. I'm just asking you, have you thought about it?" Yu Songhuan's tone was very strict. "Mom, let me go. The child in my stomach is really Di Haotian's. Tang Bao begged. Yu Songhuan's expression was extremely ugly. In other words, you don't want to leave Haotian? Very good, I can see that you're the kind of person who won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Today is the deadline, and I am a man of my word. I'll call Haotian and ask him to come here. Mom. Tang Bao still wanted to say something, but the phone was hung up. Tang Bao's heart was in a mess. What should she do? What would Di Haotian do if he knew? At this moment, the child in her stomach suddenly moved, scaring her so much that her face turned pale. What kind of omen was this? Could it be that even the children felt insecure? Tang Bao held his belly with both hands in fear and stroked it over and over again, trying to comfort the panicked child. After Yu Songhuan hung up the phone, he was furious. It seemed that things had to be done this way. She gave Tang Bao a chance first because she didn't want anything to happen to her. Wasn't it good to take the child far away? She didn't expect her to be so ungrateful. She suppressed her anger and called Di Haotian. As soon as the call ended, Lan Wanru arrived. Miss Lan, Aunt Wang greeted her. Lan Wanru saw Yu Songhuan's unhappy expression and hurried over. Auntie, what's wrong? Besides that Tang Bao, what else can make me so angry? She's pregnant now, and it's Brother Haotian's child. How can it make Auntie happy? Lan Wanru's eyes flashed as he said. Yu Songhuan looked at Lan Wanru with a sharp gaze. Wanru, even if you knew that there was something wrong with Tang Bao's child, you wouldn't have told me, right? Auntie, I don't know what you're talking about. Lan Wanru lowered his gaze as if he couldn't face it. I already know everything. Tang Bao's child isn't Haotian's, and you don't have to hide it from me. If it weren't for Lan Wanru's maid gossiping, she wouldn't have suspected Tang Bao at all. Auntie, did you misunderstand something? How can Tang Bao's child not Brother Haotian's? If it was a rumor in the past, now that I've done a DNA test, how can it be fake? I'm so angry. Lan Wanru saw that Yu Songhuan was panting in anger and quickly served her tea. Auntie, calm down. If all DNA tests are like this, then I have nothing to say. But now that things have come to this, we can only solve it. If only I had married you back then, all these things wouldn't have happened. Yu Songhuan said regretfully and hatefully. As long as Brother Haotian wants me, I'll always wait for him, Lan Wanru confided. This matter must be solved today. Without Tang Bao, I'll make Haotian marry you no matter what. Yu Songhuan was simply dissatisfied with Tang Bao. Lan Wanru was much gentler and more demure than her. Why is there no Tang Bao? Lan Wanru asked, puzzled. I just called Haotian to come over. I want to show him the results of the DNA test. Even if it's heartbreaking, he must know. As long as he knows that he was deceived and betrayed by Tang Bao, the Tang Bao will definitely not have a good ending. Lan Wanru didn't expect that she would come at such a coincidental time. How long had it been since she last saw Di Haotian? She had missed Di Haotian for as long as she hadn't seen him. About half an hour later, Di Haotian arrived at the bungalow. When she saw Di Haotian's tall figure enter the door, she immediately stood up and walked forward happily. Brother Haotian, you're here? I just arrived. If I knew you were coming, I would have come even earlier. Are you feeling better? Di Haotian looked at her. Much better. Thank you, Brother Haotian, for your concern. Di Haotian nodded slightly, sat down on the sofa and asked Yu Songhuan, why are you looking for me? Haotian, there's something I want to tell you. It's very serious. I hope you can be mentally prepared. Yu Songhuan believed that the Di family wouldn't be so fragile. Especially Di Haotian. Di Haotian picked up the tea in front of him and took a sip. Lan Wanru, who was standing not far behind him, turned on her phone and silently answered the call. Of course, she was calling Tang Bao. Tang Bao was pacing back and forth in the room in a daze. He picked up the call as soon as it came. Then, Di Haotian asked, "What's the matter?" Tang Bao was stunned. This wasn't Di Haotian's number, right? She had saved Di Haotian's number. Then whose was it? After thinking carefully, she realized that this was Lan Wanru's number. Was Lan Wanru using this method to provoke her again? It was obvious that Di Haotian was with Lan Wanru at this moment. What did Di Haotian mean? Could it be that he was with Lan Wanru behind her back during the day? She thought that Di Haotian would either return to the castle on time or early every day. He had never gone to look for Lan Wanru. It turned out that it wasn't that he didn't go, but that he went and she didn't know. Just as she was about to turn off her phone in a depressed mood. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.